Ms. Pacino, can you start us off with the roll call, please?
Good morning, Commissioners. District 1, District 2, District 3,
Present online.
District 4, vacant, District 5, Chair Shadid,
Present.
District 6, District 6,
She's here.
District 7, District 7, District 8,
Here.
District 9, District 10,
Here.
District 11, District 11, District 12,
Present.
District 13, District 14. Uh-oh.
The
And
look, I was like, okay.
place 15.
Here. The camouflage jacket gave you away, Melissa.
I'm scared.
And the look. Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today is February 1st, 2024, 9:03 a.m. Welcome to the briefing of the Data City Plan Commission. We have one customer here this morning. Good morning, Mr. Baldwin. As always, Commissioners, this is a time for questions between Commissioners and staff. We'll get to all our comments and discussion at the hearing starting at 12:30. And with that, Commissioners, we're going to just take it right down the line on the agenda in order. We'll begin with the annual report briefing by Dr. Utrecht.
Good morning, Commissioners. So the annual report, thank you for bearing with us. We put it together. We circulated to you on Sunday on the new end, old email addresses. You have the chair's memo that is in front of the report. We were thinking today to go through the mission statements the chair proposed based on your input and whereas the chair proposed 3 alternatives. I'll go back to that in a second. Then you have obviously the numbers in the pages, and then if you look at the Excel spreadsheet, a very detailed view of the cases that were under, the zoning cases that were under consideration with City Plan Commission, the fiscal year 22-23. So we put it as a briefing because we wanted to see which one of the mission statements you want to put forward. I can read the 3 of them if you want to. I would like a little nod, being the briefing we won't vote right now. I would like a little nod to see which one do you think it should be in the report. Then we'll get the report ready and then have it the first on the agenda in the afternoon so we can vote and submit it today.
Just one quick little comment, and thank all the commissioners that sent words in. I know some of you even sent a sample mission statement. So what you see there, the 3 options are kind of the stuff that I received from you, and I tried to put them together in a rational way. And then I also included the mission statement that's on the website, and that's what's at the very top, which frankly sounds pretty good to me. Also, of course, I had to put it into ChatGPT and didn't quite get anything back that was worth placing here in front of you guys. It did sound a little mechanical, but I'm welcome to take input into any of these. We can choose one, we can combine one of the 3 with another one. It's really up to you. Any preferences? Commissioner Hall?
My preference was number 2.
My preference is number 2 as well.
While you're looking at them, I can read them out into the record. So the first option, the current mission statement is, City Plan Commission is responsible for making recommendations to the City Council regarding planning and zoning matters, and for administering Chapter 212 of the Texas Local Government Code regarding the platting and recording of subdivision and additions. It is through this planning for and regulation of land development that the City Plan Commission achieves its land use planning objectives. This is the one that's currently it's listed on our website. We have three alternatives. They are based on the words and statements submitted by the commissioners. The first option is, the Dallas City Plan Commission advises the City Council on zoning cases and land use planning while administering Chapter 212 of the Texas Local Government Code. Our mission is to foster a thriving, inclusive city that evolves responsibly to meet residents' needs and embraces innovation. Through collaboration, we shape a dynamic urban landscape that reflects our diverse community's values. This is the first one. The second one that already received two endorsements. The City Plan Commission advises the City Council on zoning and land use matters, guided by values such as data-driven decision-making, research, accountability, and sustainability. Our mission is to foster a thriving, sustainable city through impartial leadership, ensuring responsible growth that meets the needs of our diverse community. Committed to transparency and integrity, we strive to shape a dynamic urban landscape that reflects the values of Dallas residents. And then the third, the City Plan Commission is responsible for making recommendations to City Council regarding planning and zoning matters, and for administering Chapter 212 of the Texas Local Government Code regarding the platting and recording of subdivision and additions. It is through this planning and regulation of land development that the City Plan Commission achieves its land use planning objectives. Our mission is to foster a thriving, sustainable city through impartial leadership, ensuring responsible growth that meets the needs of our diverse community. Committed to transparency and integrity, we strive to shape a dynamic urban landscape that reflects the values of Dallas residents.
Commissioner Houseright, please.
I would have to agree. I think the second option's the strongest.
Okay. Commissioner Carpenter?
I prefer, okay, I'm sorry. I really prefer the one that just appears now on the city website.
Any other
Chair,
opinions,
this is
Commissioners?
Commissioner Herbert. I like
Commissioner
number
Herbert.
number two as well.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Hawk. I like number 2 with 2 small grammatical changes.
Okay.
The first is just that first sentence, the Dallas City Plan Commission advises the City Council on zoning and land matters, guided by decision-driven or data-driven decision-making, et cetera, et cetera. And then that last sentence, committed to the transparency and integrity, we strive to shape a dynamic urban landscape that reflects the values and needs of Dallas residents.
Okay. That's nice. Okay. Commissioner Blair?
In order to represent all of District 8, there is a major portion of District 8 that has issue with the word urban. I get that and their goal is never to become urban, but to stay rural. And in making it all of the city urban, that is not something that represents a major section of my district. So I don't know how to reword that. And I get that the majority of the city is in looking at an urban landscape. And I do have sections of the city that's also looking at an urban landscape. But I can't represent a portion of the district. I have to represent all of the district.
Okay. Thank you.
What if that word just got removed?
Commissioner Hawk, pardon me.
Just what if you just took out urban and it's just a dynamic landscape?
I get that, and just let me say this, I do like number 2 the best, and I thank you for that suggestion, Commissioner Hawk.
Shape a dynamic landscape, okay. That reads kind of awkward, right?
I don't know if that reads for me, you know.
Yeah.
I understand that there are portions, particularly those of the city, particularly those in Commissioner Blair's district, that have a rural identity, but as the 9th largest city in the country, I do think, you know, keeping the concept of an urban, dynamic urban landscape is important to our mission. You know, at the same time, I don't think that this mission statement calls for any portion of the city that's currently rural to be urbanized right now. So I see that maybe there's some. Pardon?
In our zoning cases, yes, they do work to urbanize the rural section of my district. And
Your microphone's not on, Commissioner Blair.
I'm sorry. In zoning cases that I have had, there has been a push to urbanize it and make it walkable, and that is where I get the most pushback from the Kleberg-Riley area, because even the saying urban to them is a slight and an offense. And even if I lose this, and I don't have a problem with that, I have to go on record representing all of my district. And that major section, I had a zoning case where I worked with the applicant all weekend long, removing all the urban that was recommended to be put in that PD.
Understood, and you know, we have, I think, largely voted against cases that have sought to urbanize the Kleberg-Riley areas, and I think with this language remaining in there, I think we can still, you know.
I like the fact that if it's dynamic for all, that then it represents the landscape of all areas of the city, whether it be urban, whether it be rural, whether it be any kind of area, whether it be the west, the east, the south, the north. If you just leave it at the word dynamic, it represents all areas of the city.
It just reads to me as I don't know if it reads well to me as just a dynamic landscape, and given, you know, the vast proportion of our city being urban, I think a nod to a dynamic urban landscape is important in this document, but obviously we see things differently, which is fine.
Commissioner Houseright?
I think I understand where Commissioner Blair is coming from, but I still like the word urban. I take it as urban, the context of it as being the most broad definition of urban. It's not necessarily CBD, high density. I mean, I think of a town of 5,000 people in, you know, the West Texas is urban, and to me it speaks to just the fact that there is a complex network of relationships between multiple properties and uses, and our job is to exercise judgment over that. Whether, you know, I think District 8 is urban in that context, in the use of the word that way. So
I don't want to spend an inordinate amount of time on this.
It's actually
especially
Commissioner Hall's next, pardon me. Commissioner Hall?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, just looking at the dictionary.com definition, it says urban, of, pertaining to, or designating a city or town, living in a city. And the way I look at it, I don't think we should get too detailed. If we're in the city limits, we're in an urban environment, regardless of the makeup of that particular area.
Okay, so I think I was in the minority that was for to just keep what we had on the website, but it sounds like we are number 2 is kind of the direction that we're going with the addition of "and needs" in the last sentence, the values and needs of Dallas residents. Any other adjustments? So we'll need to take a vote on that now, or do we need to? It's just a briefing, okay. Perfect, thank you very much, Commissioners. We'll go with number 2. And now we'll go to our briefing of Forward Dallas. Mr. Agu. Good morning, sir.
All right, good morning, Commissioners. Lawrence Agu, Planning Urban Design Chief Planner and Project Manager of Forward Dallas. So today we're going to do a little bit more detailed overview of Forward Dallas, just to get everybody up to speed in terms of what we've done so far, what we're currently developing, and the requests from this body. Before I begin going to overview, I want to open the floor to Vice Chair Rubin, just to give a quick overview in terms of his experience within when he was at CLUP, and provide an overview from his firsthand experience before we delve into staff's overview.
Yeah, CLUP was certainly a marathon, not a sprint. I think we met 27 times over the course of a 2-year period, and that was separate and apart from all of the community engagement that city staff did. I had the opportunity to attend some of those community meetings, but certainly wasn't able to attend every one. And, you know, as we discussed probably, gosh, this must have been 3+ years ago when we were first talking about rewriting the comp plan or updating the comp plan. You know, we had a wide range of folks with very different backgrounds and experiences, from architects to folks who have experience in development, to sort of racial justice advocates, and obviously every member of CLUP lived in a different and dynamic neighborhood in Dallas. So we had a really wide range of folks who gave a lot of different feedback on the document, and a couple different iterations of the document, in fact. And we ultimately sent the document forward after our January 9th meeting with some comments, and I know staff is working on a third update version that will reflect some of the comments. In particular, I would say at those last 2 meetings, we really focused on what Mr. Agu will talk about being the residential place types, which I'm sure many of you have heard about from various sources as of late, because that seemed to be a hot topic of discussion. And also, a major thing that we addressed in the draft was environmental justice issues, and particularly, residential uses in close proximity to incompatible industrial uses, particularly concentrated in, areas where the population is, concentrated in people of color. So we really are looking at the comp plan as a tool to address those industrial incompatibilities. Mr. Agu and his team can speak much more eloquently to all of this than I am, but overall it was a long road. It was a good road, and we're happy to have this here at the Plan Commission for y'all to dig into. I encourage everyone to print it out. It's a really, probably a 60-page document at this point that, in some points, speaks at a, very high level, but there also is some text to dig into, and I, welcome everyone's feedback and comments as we go through this next round of review, and excited to see what the Plan Commission does with it.
All right, thank you so much. So with that, we're going to just jump straight into our discussion. So again, the purpose of today is to provide an overview, a bit more detailed overview than we provided last time related to the For Dallas plan, its contents, the purpose, why we're here, and what we're looking for this commission to help develop. So we're going to first touch on the relevance of For Dallas. We're going to delve into the structure, how we've organized the plan document, how to use the plan, specifically looking at how staff and this commission will use the plan, and then further questions to investigate through our discussions with you all over the next few months. We want to be able to pinpoint and prepare you all for hopefully some robust discussion through this process and the next steps for the project. So why For Dallas? One, projected growth. Y'all have heard us say this multiple times that we're supposed to be adding 300,000 people to the city in the next 25 years. That's the city of Plano coming inside the city of Dallas. These are COG projections. So by the time 2045 rolls around, the population should be 1.6 million people. So we're looking to think about how do we plan and think about our land uses to accommodate and make sure that we're not burdening any portion of the city as we continue to grow. Two, our current land use policy is piecemeal and aging. So as we look at all the different plans that we have in the city, there are some that are older than I am. There are some that were created before I even existed. So it's important that we are looking at what's relevant from those plans and how do we apply current thoughts about land uses to what we're looking at now. Some of you all might say, well, we do have a plan that exists that covers the city, kind of. So in 2006, the current plan on the ground, the plan was developed and it covered the city, but a few things that were kind of off with that. One, it's explicitly said in this plan document that this is not a comprehensive plan map. I guess another word of saying that this is not a future land use map. So having a map that says this is not a future land use map, kind of an issue. Two, it kind of continues to say this is just an illustration. So it's not even a map, it's just a pretty picture in a sense. This is kind of taking away what it could have done to help with planning and development in the city. And also it says this does not indicate official city related, this does not indicate official city policy related to specific sites or areas. So basically the definition of a map, it basically stated on this particular map that this isn't that. So that's very important to note that as we're looking at the current For Dallas plan and what it actually says and doesn't say, that's taken away what it could have done for development review and the planning of the city over the last few years. Also, some might say, well, okay, we have area plans that have covered that, kind of. So because we didn't have a future comprehensive map that did what it was supposed to do, others started to develop area plans in the city. This shows a composite of all the area plans that we analyzed during this process. As you can notice, there's a bunch of different colors. They don't cover the entire city. And as we look into what the state says about comp plan, there's two ways you can go about a comp plan. One, you can create a plan that covers the entire city, which you don't have, or you can create multiple area plans that as a composite covers the entire city. We also don't have that. So as we're looking at our current For Dallas plan, under the current definitions of a comp plan, we actually don't really have one. So that's why it's very critical that we, one, get one that's done properly and one that covers the entire city and provides predictability in terms of what we're looking at from a city planning perspective. So thirdly, the purpose of this is to create that land use guidance to help predictably understand what's happening in the city. So that previous plan that I showed had different yellows, different colors. They meant different things. The idea with what we're looking at now and trying to develop is a consistent language throughout the entire city as the baseline to think through what the future looks like moving forward. In addition to that, we are tying in current policies into what we're developing. So from the racial equity plan to the housing plan, the economic development policy, they've pinpointed for Dallas to do specific things through our plan. So from the racial equity plan, for Dallas should help identify, mixed-use land uses in historically disadvantaged communities, proposing zoning to increase walkable and affordable housing. The Dallas housing policy, for Dallas should work to increase the production of housing in a targeted manner that aligns with the plan. The eco development policy, land use through for Dallas, the comprehensive plan, should heighten job creation at a neighborhood level in tandem with redevelopment efforts of aging commercial centers. Connect Dallas, for Dallas, should be basically at the core of looking at the impacts of vehicle miles traveled and mode splits as indicators of land use scenarios. And CCAP, as we all know, develop a comprehensive land use strategy in the upcoming comp plan to update and pair with the strategic mobility plan, CCAP goals, and adopt a policy to reduce GHG emissions. So as we're looking at all these other plans that were adopted in the last 3 to 4 years, basically every year a plan has come through the city that has pinpointed for Dallas to do something related to land use and also to move the needle forward with the policies that they had in those plans. So as we are kind of getting an idea of why we're doing this, I want to also then fast forward to where we are right now with the current plan document. So this illustration just shows the 4 major sections of the plan document. 1, the land use themes, 2, the place type descriptions, 3, the place type map, and then 4, the implementation section. So through the last few years, CLUP, as Vice Chair Rubin has mentioned, has helped develop each of these sections with a focus on the land use themes and the place type descriptions. They also delved into some map discussions and some implementation discussions, but this body, CPC, we're going to be asking you all to focus on the place type map more in depth and also to the implementation section about how do we move the goals forward in our policies and when you all are reviewing cases. So the implementation, that's the purpose of this body. We're going to be looking at what those action items say and how you all can help move that forward with our discussions. So how's this plan used? What's the difference between this plan and our current plan? So we're going to touch on development review, implementation of city priorities, responding to community concerns, and how do we respond to changes that are needed in the plan. So you're going to hear my team say this over and over again. Place types aren't zoning, but I'm going to delve into a bit more detail on how that is. So place types, they provide the non-regulatory future land use guidance on how a community should look like, while zoning is the regulatory requirements for how a property must be developed. So the idea between a vision, the shoulds, versus the requirements, the musts, that's something that we want to drill down pretty heavily to clarify the purpose of one of these. And also you might be hearing too that, some might say, why do we need to continue with for Dallas? We can just, continue with the zoning updates, code reform updates. Let's do that in tandem, or let's do that first. But it doesn't make sense when you think about it in terms of creating a plan or something with dimensions that doesn't have a purpose or a vision. So the shoulds versus the musts, that's important that we're looking at the visionary aspects of what we're trying to build instead of just looking at one of those in seclusion. And just a note, land use guides zoning, but land use does not create zoning. So another reason why this is going to help with development review, we're going to talk through a mock case, for example, just to think through the purpose of this for Dallas versus for Dallas 2006. So as we look at this quick chart, talks through how a zoning application comes through the city, from the applicant to the staff to CPC and council. I want to focus on staff's review of a development case. So currently now, we're looking at the Fort Dallas 2006 versus Fort Dallas 2.0. So Fort Dallas 2006, there's a location that exists. This location is actually in District 4, which I don't think we're covering with our commissions here. So it's actually a good conversation to talk about. We're looking at a location that is in a residential area that is along a commercial corridor, that is along a creek, and that's along a TOD corridor. So Fort Dallas 2006, the pin that we're looking at here puts that location right in the middle of all those things. So as staff reviews this, it's a case that could be residential, could be commercial, could be open space, could be water. This is actually a commercial development that's come through through this body. So as we're looking at the 2006 versus 2.0, we can see that the 2006 this provides unclarity in terms of what land uses should exist in that area. So as that moves forward, as staff reviews those cases, you all get those cases and recommendations with a plethora of different options just because the map and the policy guidance is very unclear. As we look at the 2.0 version, it's very clear exactly what place type this sits in, commercial mixed use. The recommendation is going to be linked to commercial mixed use, and then you all through discussion can determine which way to go with that. When the recommendations come to you all and it's multifaceted, it can become more complex as you try to decipher that. Oh, we can take them now. Yeah.
Commissioner Houseright, please.
We had a meeting just last night with District 10 leaders on Forward Dallas, and I won't give you the whole report, but let's look at this slide right here, because we're going to come back with some potential changes to colors, refinements, corrections, clarifications, et cetera. So who gets to decide that shape is orange on your slide?
So just to clarify, who gets to decide the shape of what exists here? So through kind of multiple discussions, so from the community, they help us determine which boundaries exist. Through the current natural features, CLUP helps them provide that. So basically, a consultant also helps. So it's a multiple faceted input in terms of that boundary. So we're looking at all those items in terms of determining which, and also zoning on the ground to help determine what that place is.
I have an appreciation for how it got to the draft form, but for those of us that may want to implement changes to that, and we're going to speak up, we're going to raise our hand, we're going to come to staff, is that?
Yes, and that's, so as we continue the discussion, this is not set in stone until council says it's set in stone. So we're going to have a discussion to think through those boundaries, those colors, a bit more in detail, because you all know your districts more than probably the club actually did. So you all live there. So we want to make sure that you all have the opportunity to have that discussion. Yeah. All right, now good question. Thank you. So as we look at the Fort Dallas 2006, 4002.0, we're going to delve into a bit more detail in terms of how Fort Dallas 2.0 staff could use this to help provide clarity for this body and also moving forward with certain recommendations that they provide. So as we look at the particular location, this is community mixed use. This provides a current spread, an example of what this particular place type will look like in the document. So it's going to be two-page spread. This first one talks through the character descriptions, gives you a quick overview in terms of what it is, where it's located, the types of land uses you might see, or mix of land uses. So as you continue to look at the cases that come through versus the place types that it falls within, you can start to understand and get a better picture of what that looks like. But if you need more detail as to what that place type is saying and how to apply that on the ground, the next spread provides a bit more detail in terms of how you apply that application of the place types to that particular either zoning case that we see. So from through understanding the adjacencies that it might have with other uses, urban design elements related to either mobility, green open space, street parking, building form, those are all components that helps to inform staff in this body in terms of the particular zoning case, fall in line and marry the vision that the community has within this particular place type. So this is what this particular spread and document is starting to unfold and look like, and we're going to be using your experience here to help us tailor this to help staff and your team in reviewing these documents. Additionally, too, as cases start to come through post-Forward Dallas, it's important that we are also looking through some of the goals that Forward Dallas is trying to achieve through what we've heard from the community. So as new development, redevelopment, and capital improvement projects come through, it's important that you're all looking at those projects through the lens of these goals and what they're trying to achieve through land use and through just citywide policy. So as we delve into the discussions with the implementation table in that particular section, we're going to get everybody hopefully up to speed in terms of what we've heard from the community, our technical review panel, and also your commission to help develop what this should be. Thirdly, as this continues to move through the process, this is going to be engaging the publics and their concerns through equitable engagement. So we've done a bit more. I think we've done more engagement than a lot of the plans in the last 4 years combined. So it's important that we are continuing to hear from the community in terms of what those land uses on the ground should be in their area and how we're applying those musts to make that happen. If there are particular areas in the city that are experiencing kind of environmental justice concerns, for example, we want to continue to speak and continue to think through creative solutions to get those communities out of those situations through the conversation we'll be having through community engagement. And then lastly, what's going to happen if the plan changes? What if we need to change something? Say, Amazon HQ decides to come here and we need to think through a land use change update in a particular part of the city. That can be done. So the plan can be amended as new information arises through area plans. How it's supposed to work when you have a comprehensive plan base. You can do smaller area plans that speak the same language and basically update a certain part of the city to update the future land use vision that's also in congruence with the comp plan. So last thing I want to talk about, questions that we're going to be engaging you all with and in the next few months. So one, the community residential place type, a lot of discussion in terms of what types of uses are within that place type. We want to be able to unpack what the current plan, what the current place type says, what actually Forward Dallas 2006 says, and think through where we're moving forward with the future. Two, the flex commercial place type, that is the lightest, industrial place type / mix with commercial place type that we have. That one basically signals the transition away from industrial uses. So that place type is going to be key in figuring out what it says, those land uses, and where those are located in the city. Third, and also speaking to the conversation of flex commercial, the area of Joppy. That is for staff, that's the most difficult area that we've investigated, and when we continue to think through ideas with this commission, to think through how do we address some of these land use concerns in a way that's realistic and also addresses some of the concerns the community sees here. So we'll be providing you with some options to think through and help us to make sure that the way forward makes sense. Commercial motor vehicle parking, thinking through where and how the place types incorporate that and speak to that. And then lastly, public utility uses within these place types. So I want to touch on those major questions. There will probably be others that come through our conversation, but those are the 5 that we've talked through at CLUP, and we wanted to move to this body to think about a bit further. So what's next? So this month is going to be similar to this, February, plan briefings, workshops to discuss and talk through and bring everybody up to speed with what Forward Dallas is. As we go into the next months, March through May, having public hearings and briefings and workshops that engages the community in terms of what they would like to see in that plan document. And the hope is as we move into June 2024, we have something ready for council to also begin the discussion and review as well. So for that is all I have. Everybody can stay connected with our department through different things on the screen.
Thank you, sir.
That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Houserath, please. Commissioner Hampton, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Agu. I think similar to Commissioner Housewright, I'm, hearing from my community, getting some feedback, some questions that are coming out. So I think one thing that might be helpful, particularly one of the primary questions I've gotten is how the place types have evolved since some of that initial community outreach and how those are being considered. I know we don't have time to probably go through all the questions I'm going to have. So what would you recommend for us as commissioners, for our community, as we're trying to, think about this and think about the input that we're getting from stakeholder groups?
No, great question. So I think when we do come back here too as well, we're going to delve a bit more into detail into the history of those key issue place types, just to understand how we got to those place types. So I think as you continue to engage your community, you want to be able to pull out what are the core concerns, what are the core issues, and what are the core desires from a particular place type. We want to make sure that we're addressing that through what we can through this land use plan. I think a lot of kind of talking can get people looking at different things. We want to be looking at the core of what is the purpose of what people are trying to get from these place types in their communities, and how can we achieve that through these place types.
So should we have them reach out to you? Should we send you a list of questions?
All of the above. So
Okay.
yes, and I think in addition to that, when we do have these public hearings, we want to also hear them come and speak in this forum and speak to what issues that they're having or which suggestions that they have related to those place types.
Well, look forward to continuing the conversation and understanding how we can facilitate that additional input.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall?
Thank you. Good presentation. Early on, you mentioned by 2045, the population of the Dallas would be 1.6 million. You're talking about just within the city limits.
That's just city limits, yes, sir.
Okay. If I'm correct, there's been a lot of articles in the newspaper and stuff lately, and there's been some chatter that we've actually lost population due to housing prices.
So yes and no. So as we're getting population to the city currently now, the same amount of people are actually leaving the city. So our population's kind of stayed about the same during the last few years because of the housing crisis. But in terms of the projections from a transportation aspect and looking regionally, city of Dallas is actually going to be growing not as fast as the rest of the region. So the rest of the region is actually, probably newer land, easier to develop for the most case. So that area is going to be developing pretty quickly, or even quicker than us. But we're still, based on the projections from COG, still anticipated to grow pretty rapidly in the next 25 years.
What do you estimate the population right now?
I think so. Right now it's 1.3 million.
1.3. Okay. And just one final question. A lot of comments about businesses moving to Texas. Do people move to Dallas, or do they move to our suburbs? Do businesses build corporate offices in the suburbs or in the city of Dallas?
I'll say yes to both of those for two reasons. So the region, the North Texas region, because our cities work really well together, where you can be close to downtown, the core, like this is basically the nexus of economic development, but you could still, drive or access cheaper land in the area and also develop there too. So we're seeing growth everywhere, but the city of Dallas is basically that nexus that kind of makes everything else around us work. So we've been kind of fortunate to be that, but I think in the next 20, 25 years, thinking about if other cities are growing faster than us, where does that leave us? What do we become? That's something that we can probably have a discussion about. We haven't delved too much into that with our previous committees and commissions, but that would be an interesting conversation to think about the future of the city of Dallas. If others are growing faster than us, even though we're still growing, what does that look like in the next 20, 25 years? That's a good question.
And one final thing real quick. How does Forward Dallas meld with maybe similar programs surrounding us in our suburbs?
Also a great question. So as we looked at, for example, the area plan, that map I kind of showed the composite collage, we actually did the same thing with all city comp plans around us. So as we're looking at our future land uses, we want to be able to make sure that we are tying that vision regionally with what's happening in Lancaster, what's happening, up in Plano. Although, because we work as this mega kind of machine. We've looked at how all those communities are growing. So a lot of the growth is going to be actually happening, in southern Dallas. That's actually very interesting. So a lot of that development in terms of what southern cities are seeing. We also have to think about that too as well. Our economic development department, they're looking at that too. So as we're looking at certain industries to grow regionally, we have to be cognizant of how do we incorporate, for example, industrial uses in the city when every other city around us is focusing on that. So that's something that's going to be critical to think about location of these land uses as other regions are focusing on certain land uses too as well. No, thank you.
Commissioner Charnock.
I have a question. I want to circle back to a statement you just said in that last run there was, I think the exact quote was current housing crisis. When I read the Forward Dallas, it seems like it's becoming generally accepted that there's a crisis. When housing's written about in print, that's the terminology they use. It's being used here today. But when I read Forward Dallas, that didn't really leap out at me. And I was wondering if that is the current state of affairs, has anybody looked at why that is, and then like really driven down into the data on, exactly how many housing units do we have, how many apartments do we have, and then what also doesn't really come out at me out of the plan is what is a healthy housing equilibrium look like for a city of this size?
No, that's a fantastic question. So a few components to what you just mentioned. In terms of what does a healthy city look like in terms of housing? I believe, I think the ratio that our housing department provided us is having anywhere from 60% home ownership, I believe, in the city. It's kind of that sweet spot to have, in a particular city. But I think I'm not sure if we were at about 40%. I need to confirm that with our department, but we're below those best practice ratios. Also on the ground, as we were listening to communities that are throughout the city, from those who are younger who can't afford to buy a house, that were looking to buy a house but they can't, those who are aging who either don't want to stay what they are because their land is too big. I'm in a neighborhood where my neighbors are on average 50 years, have been in the house 50 years. And they're looking to move away because they want to be closer to amenities, because they feel like driving 30 minutes to somewhere else doesn't make sense for them, and they can't do it anymore. They can't maintain their lawn. Had a neighbor who broke his knee. So things like that in terms of the type of housing that's available. We hear that there's an issue in terms of being able to get to that housing that they want to get to. So not just from the literature that we hear, not just from community engagement, but throughout just our research too, we hear that there's an issue to get the type of housing, affordable housing that people would like to get. So I think that's one piece. With Forward Dallas, what we're looking at, we want this to be a visionary document. So thinking about the future, what is that vision? What is the should of what the city of Dallas should look like? So we touch on some of those issues early on in the document. We even actually created a existing conditions report which looks at housing, which looks at transportation and other aspects of the city right now. We can also forward that to this commission, just kind of review what the takeaways from that. But we looked at some of those issues and how do we address that from this particular document. So all of this document probably doesn't delve into the detail of those current issues. We can do a bit more, we can provide a bit more clarity probably at the beginning of our document. The focus is the vision, the future of what the city of Dallas should look like.
Okay, so on that, when I think of a plan, I think we have a real accurate definition and understanding with data of where we are. We have a real accurate definition and with according numbers where we want to go. And then the plan takes you there. And then you have accountability. And I just don't see how this is shaped that way. And so, as a plan commissioner, I would love to know, like, hey, we're short this many housing units. And then quarterly, at very least biannually, I would love to have the city report back to us and say, here's where we are on this is how many apartments we've added, this is how many single-family houses we've added. And then we could say, okay, it looks like we're tracking on time, on schedule, or we're not.
Yes, so that we actually going to be part of the plan too as well, having a monitoring plan that looks at those particular goals and how are we tracking to get there. So that's part of what our consultants helping us scope and develop is, and that's what we're going to be talking about through this commission, is thinking about what are those things we want to track and measure, and what does success look like. So through the previous discussions with CLUP, we've kind of basically built the document structure. Now we're going to go into the detail in terms of how do we implement and make this real, and also keep staff and the city personnel accountable with moving toward those goal ends. I'm not sure if you have anything to add, Director Gillis.
Sure, Andrea Gillis, Planning and Urban Design. One of the challenges that we've had throughout this whole process is to clarify that this is a future land use plan and that there are other policy documents that get more into the subject matter weeds. So for example, some of the questions that the data that you're looking for is coming directly through the housing policy. And so we're working very closely with staff in the housing policy, and there are pieces of it that we can take and also that we use to inform to say in certain place types, we need certain mixes of uses or residential uses, or we should focus our multifamily here, and we need to think about, single family here. So some of the ways that we track, or because in our group it's land use and zoning and design. Those are sort of the three things that we have charge over, not necessarily the specific housing production. But indirectly we can get to that because we can look at our annual reports that say, did we amend the code to provide certain housing types or certain zoning districts that would allow the development of certain housing types that, for example, we don't have today? How many of our, and this is in the annual report, how many of our zoning cases did support more housing development in X area, and what were those types? So we will be coming back with those metrics, but it's a little bit more general in the land use plan. In the land use plan, we're saying more so, where do you want to direct that housing in general? And yes, get into some of the intensities, but the weeds of it is more geared toward the housing policy document and our housing department.
Okay, but the current Forward Dallas plan calls out specific numbers. I mean, it calls out 26,000 single-family houses. I mean, there are specific, right, when it comes to land use. So it seems like that's not going to be part of this anymore.
Well, let me also clarify too. We're talking about the difference between a traditional comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan and the 2006 plan was the more traditional, where all of the elements, the housing element, the infrastructure, the streets element, was all in that one plan. It's now been parsed out into separate plans. So this plan is just land use, whereas the 2006 plan incorporated a housing element, incorporated a sustainability element, incorporated the urban design element. This one, that's already been taken care of and parsed out through the housing policy specifically. This one now, the remaining element is land use.
Right.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, we'll keep moving. Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
Commissioners, item number 3 will be renoticed. Anything we need to know, Mr. Daniel?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I was just going to say that it will be renoticed to clarify that DCA 223-008 will not be an executive session, but a briefing that is open.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, will keep going. We'll begin with item number 4. Mm-hmm. Good morning, Ms. Blue.
Good morning, commissioners. Let me get everything set up. All right. This is item 234-006. It's for a request for a CPC relief to the street frontage regulations along South Irvay Street, which is also a primary street, due to site constraints per section 51P 137.120 B4C and also section 51P-137.120 C4V. It's located in PD 317. There's two sub-areas. There's sub-area 2, which is the modern density mixed use corridor, and then also sub-area 3, which is the freeway-oriented high-density mix. The area request is 3.1434 acres, and it's in Council District Number 2. Here's location of the property. It's located along the north line of South Irvay Street between Richardson Avenue and the Gulf Carolina and Santa Fe Railroad. Here's a little background history as far as the street frontage relief for sections 120, B4, A, V, and then also C of 124V. It states that CPC may approve a site plan at a public hearing that does not comply with the regulations of the street frontage if these things happen. Meeting the requirements are impartial due to site restraints. Meeting the requirements would not substantially create a hardship, and then also it would not adversely affect the surrounding properties. And also states that this relief must also follow the purpose of both sub-districts. So here's the applicant response as related to the section. It says here site compliance, strict compliance with the street frontage requirements for this development will not create a hardship, as the only reason for the release is to accommodate the existing conditions, which is the retaining wall that's running parallel with the property. The response to number 2, this exception to the street frontage requirements along South Irvay Street would not adversely affect surrounding properties, for there is only the below properties to consider. South of the property, directly across the street, there's an industrial use, and then west of the property, there's a vacant lot and a vacant structure as well. Response to number 3, the application for street frontage requirements will further the purpose of both sub-area 2 and 3. Here's some details of the requirement for setbacks along South Irvay. There's a min-max. It should be a max of 5 feet and a minimum of 10. And within that, the street-facing facade has to be 70% within the min-max along South Irvay Street. So the front yard's proposed request, so CPC relief is being requested. The site constraints is the retaining wall that services the street underpass that I stated earlier, and then also there's some compliance for fire lane on the property. Here's an area map that shows the surrounding zoning districts. Also within the property, you can see what area 2, sub-area 2, and sub-area 3 is. Down here, kind of southeast, I highlighted the retaining wall in yellow and also called it out, and then you can see in green where the railroad runs. Here's a zoning map, kind of showing the same information. Here is the proposed site plan. Right here I had the area request highlighted. If you can see my mouse, right here to the north of the property, I think they're only showing 13 feet. We'll get to the numbers in a minute, but I want to run by the fire lane. So as you can see, you go into the property on South Irvay, and then the fire lane kind of runs parallel with the retaining wall, and then it wraps around to the rear of the property and then comes back out at St. Paul, and St. Paul and Kelly Avenue kind of meets. Here is an enlarged view of the site plan. Here's looking at the numbers. As of now, they're only meeting 13% of the required of the 70%. So they're requesting for 57% relief to meet the 70% along South Irvay. Here are some site photos. This is looking north, kind of at the corner of Irvay and Richardson Avenue. This is looking straight onto the property. This is looking east on South Irvay. You can see the retaining wall and also the railroad and the underpass. This is looking south, kind of across the street where I talked about the industrial use. And this is looking west where I talked about the vacant lot that has a structure and just some vacant concrete, some old concrete. Staff recommendation is approval subject to the site plan. Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Hampton?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Blue. Just one clarification in the case report, and I will give a shout out to one of my community members because I read by it as well. Is it correct that on page 3, I'm going to get the right number here, that there was a reference to Parnell Street that was included in error, that Parnell is not in proximity to this location?
I was going to bring that up. I do apologize. I had about 4 or 5 of these street relief cases, and kind of the streets are running together in my brain, but that should read South Hervé instead of Parnell.
Thank you.
So I truly apologize.
I know all other information is there, so I just wanted to note that. And thank you for the photos that were in the case report. I think I did some quick math. The primary reason why they're not able to meet the street frontage is because of the fire lane and also because of the configuration of the retaining wall for the overpass for the train. It looks like it's about roughly 60% of that frontage is the retaining wall with the numbers that are in the docket. Does that sound about right to you?
So if the retaining wall is 60%, so what we usually do, we'll go from actually street to the railroad, and we'll get the length of the property along the frontage and then calculate the numbers from there.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I will say I was able to visit with the applicant team on this. I know they worked very diligently to try to get as much frontage as they could. So thank you for the presentation on this.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Hampton. Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes, one of the criteria here is that the exception not adversely affect surrounding properties. And the applicant's response was, that doesn't happen because there are only 2 properties to consider, an industrial use and a vacant lot and structure. But you don't anticipate that this exception here would adversely affect any future use on those surrounding properties. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, but we really truly try to focus on where the request is actually the area request for the property. So the other sides of South Richardson and then also St. Paul, they are meeting the street frontage requirements on the property. So I think that's why we kind of geared it towards South Hervé and what was in the proximity of around South Hervé.
Right, but this particular exception is not likely to cause any adverse effect on any surrounding
No,
uses.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, commissioners, on this item? For our commissioners online, I can't see you, so if you have a question, just go ahead and pipe up. Okay, commissioners, will go on to our zoning cases under consent. At this point, cases 5 through 17. The following cases have come off the consent agenda, cases number 6, 7, 10, and 13. 6, 7, 10, and 13.
That's mine, right?
Yes. 6 will be held under advisement, and 13 will be held under advisement. Okay, so we'll begin with case number 5.
And then for 6.
Ms. Mormon, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is item Z212-284, which is a request for renewal of specific use permit 2393 for the sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with a general merchandise or food store 3,500 square feet or less for a 3-year time period. It is on property zoned CR, Community Retail District, with a D1 liquor control overlay, and is approximately half an acre. The property is developed with a general merchandise or food store, 3,500, basically 3,500 square feet or less, a convenience store, an associated gas station or motor vehicle fueling station, and a restaurant. The SUP had expired on September 9th, 2022, with the application having been filed for renewal on June 22nd of 22. The delay in processing came from the site visit where there was some construction going on, and we were working back and forth with the applicant to determine what that looked like and what it was going to be. As it turned out, it is still in process and permitting and still in permitting. So, and it is also not associated with the actual SUP request, the convenience store in SUP for alcoholic sales. But the existing uses are permitted by right. However, because it is in a D1 liquor control overlay, the SUP is required for the sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with the convenience store. It's located in southeast Dallas, north corner of South Beltline Road and Seagoville Road. The surrounding zoning and land uses are to the north, Zone CR with D1 overlay. It's retail, new retail, actually.
Ms. Mormon, we can't see your screen. Oh, there it is.
It got really small there for a second. We got it back.
And to the east is multifamily, and then directly kind of southeast is undeveloped parcel. To the south is auto-related uses on the corner of Seagoville and Beltline. To the west is another general merchandise store with motor vehicle fueling, and it does have an SUP for alcohol sales. And then to the northwest is undeveloped. Standing to the east, looking northwest onto the site. This is standing to the south, looking on Seagoville Road, looking northeast to the site. Again, this is on site. And this is the surrounding, standing on site, looking north to the newly developed retail. Standing on site, looking east to the in construction or in development of the multifamily. Looking to the southeast, which is the undeveloped. And then looking directly south are the auto-related uses. And looking towards the west across Seagoville Road is another, the convenience store and motor vehicle refueling. And this is to the west of the site, looking east to the backside of the site in the undeveloped property. There are no changes proposed to the site plan, and staff's recommendation is approval for a 3-year period.
Thank you, Ms. Mormon. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Carpenter.
So the construction that's going on will not alter the site plan at all?
I'm sorry?
The construction that is going on that's holding things up in permitting, it's not going to alter the site plan at all?
It's not shown on the site plan. It is, at this point, because it is still in permitting with development services and building inspection, it is not relevant to this request.
Okay. And has this, So this was not delayed waiting for them to pass their 12B inspection. They have stayed in compliance with 12B? Okay, I'm sorry. This has not been held up waiting for them to pass their convenience store 12B inspection. They have stayed in compliance.
They did get their convenience store registration.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioners? Thank you very much, Ms. Warman. Commissioners, item number 6 will be held under advisement. Date to be determined. March 7th. Okay?
I have a couple questions on this.
Yes, Commissioner Kingston.
It appears to me that the applicant had a request and that staff's recommendations go well beyond the request.
Commissioner Kingston, I'm happy to talk to you offline about this. We're not planning to brief it today because we need more information.
Okay.
You want to address the question, Dr. Riddell?
I would, whatever Commissioner Trenton wants me to. I mean, I don't think we can fully brief it today, which is why I'm holding it. We need more information that will address your question.
Okay.
It's not ready to be briefed yet, but
Well, I understand that.
there's lots of moving parts.
That we're not going to talk about in public. I got it. All right.
No, I'm happy to talk about it in public. So there was a law that was passed last year, HB 7107, I think, and it relates to regulations that it can apply to an open enrollment charter school. This PD was formerly for a private school. And so some of the changes that were made were to potentially address that law. We need city attorney's office to actually do that analysis, and they haven't had time to do that. So I don't want to speculate as to what is or is not required because of the law that passed last year until we've got more time that the city attorney can look into it.
Thanks for the clarification. Commissioner Hampton.
Yeah, just if I may, I had a few questions as well, and I know we received some communications from stakeholders that I would hope will be part of what we hear when this comes back to us, just to understand changes that are required versus maybe what community expectations were from prior reviews would be helpful. Thank you.
And I have communicated with the community a lot, and they know that this is being held until there is more information and that we will have more discussions with the community. There's a lot of confusion, and I'd like it briefed when we have all the information and we can have communicated all of that information to the community.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions before we move on? We'll keep going. Case number 7, Commissioners. Again, 7 is off consent. Mr. Pepe, good morning, sir.
Good morning. There are so many colors on this screen and little pop-ins. I'm sure you don't see them, but it's distracting for me. I'm trying to make it larger for you guys. Full screen mode. Okay, all right, so this is Z223234. And this is an application for a specific use permit for a late hours establishment limited to a restaurant without drive-in or drive-through service on property zoned Plan Development District 842 with an MD1 modified Delta overlay in an area bounded by Greenville Avenue, La Vista Drive, Hope Street, and Lewis Street. And it is just, the area of request is 0.661 acres. And the applicant requests to operate an existing restaurant without drive-in or drive-through service during late hours, midnight to 2 a.m., Monday through Sunday. Voodoo Donuts is the business, and it's located in Lower Greenville. And here's the area of request. It is for a whole parcel site. the request would only apply to single suite through means that will be described later. But generally, it's on Greenville. To the north, there's personal service uses. There's single-family attached subdivision to the northeast. There's multifamily catty corner to the northeast. There's single-family attached subdivision to the east. And there's a restaurant without a drive-through to the south. And there's a vertical mixed-use complex to the west with some retail multifamily restaurants. And PD 842 was established in 2011. It creates its own definition known as late hours establishment. Late hours establishment is defined by the PD as a retail or personal service use that operates between midnight and 6 a.m. It's not a broader use in the code. It exists just in this PD. Requires an SUP in this district. That's why the applicant has come forward. This suite address that they're requesting it for is 1806 Greenville, number 120. And generally, there's a roughly 12,000 square foot retail strip built in 1930 and a 7,700 square foot storage area from 1962. The site and conditions limit this late hours to just one of the suites. Voodoo Donuts, a restaurant without drive-in or drive-through service, received a certificate of occupancy in November for the 3,111 square foot suite. And the restaurant may operate by right in the district and only needs the SUP for those operations past midnight. And they're finally requesting the SUP to extend operational hours from midnight to 2 daily. Let's see the site. So, because zoning is in regards to the whole parcel, I will show the whole parcel. And so technically the whole parcel is the area of request. However, what we're looking at right ahead here is the suite that's being requested and limited by the site plan and conditions. And now moving down on Greenville, turning the corner on Lewis Street, turning the corner back onto Hope Street, making a full circle. And now looking north at the attached single family to the north, the personal service, historic retail built out along Greenville, and the mixed-use complex directly across Greenville, and some of the retail that's farther to the south, and the restaurant that's across Lewis to the south, and the single family attached to the east. Here's the proposed SUP site plan. I think that's that's marginally better. I turned it off. So this is the suite. We can see it. It's just suite 120. It's limited on the site plan and limited in the conditions to that 3,111 square feet. And so their conditions are standard. They request 2 years with auto renewal. They limit their floor area to the floor area of the suite that they're requesting. They provide that limit on hours of operation from midnight to 2 a.m., Monday through Sunday, and they prohibit outdoor speakers. Staff recommendation is approval for a 2-year period with eligibility for automatic renewal for additional 2-year periods, subject to a site plan and conditions as requested by the applicant.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kingston.
Yeah. I thought the applicant had asked for this to be 24-hour operations. And I know the applicant's representative's here, but
That's not the conditions that we have.
that's not what the application was?
The conditions, yeah, well, the conditions that we have are midnight to 2. Can be potentially clarified if they intended something different, but the conditions that they submitted are for midnight to 2.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes, Mr. Pepe, I have questions about a paragraph on page 139 of the docket about the auto renewal process. It says, overall, the SUP auto renewal process requires public notification and potential opportunities to address operational concerns. And it gives the impression that, you know, neighbors with operational concerns, you know, can change conditions or somehow alter things through the auto renewal process. And that has never been my understanding. If something comes to you for auto renewal, doesn't staff simply monitor compliance with the site plan. There is no verification of operational conditions, compliance with operational conditions.
Our auto renewal staff, when they get our auto renewal, they check in on the site plan and conditions, see if those are met. But if there was a significant portion of opposition, because we do notify for those, if there was a significant portion of opposition in the area of request, then it would trigger a full traditional hearing for an SUP, at which point then
But that
conditions
requires
can be adjusted.
20% of the ownership of the property within the notification area. Is that
That's
not correct? So if it's just a single or a few residents who live close by who have even very significant concerns, there's not a mechanism through the auto renewal process. The staff cannot change the site plan or conditions through the auto renewal process.
Not through the auto renewal process involves that public notification, so that is the process for the changing of those, potentially.
No, I don't think I'm getting there.
You are correct, Commissioner Carpenter, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Hall.
Mr. Pepe, given the location, I assume there are other businesses around there that operate till 2 a.m.?
Other businesses that have requested SUPs throughout this PD, those are the ones that operate past midnight. So in the immediate area and to the north, those properties are zoned within PD 842. And so those ones, any businesses generally to the north and some to the south are in that PD 842, and they need an SUP to operate after midnight. If it were general commercial zoning, community retail, that wouldn't be the case. They could operate without the SUP within other regulations, but the PD is what requires it. And so yes, a number of businesses north of here especially have SUPs within the immediate area.
Commissioner Hampton.
This is more an education for me, because when you mentioned the public notice, it made me realize I don't know the answer to this. I know notifications get sent based on what you said to the the notification area receives the notice. Is there a posted notice as well? Or is it only the notification to the area?
My experts on that side are saying that yes, there is a posted notice as well.
Posted notice as well. Thank you. I just wanted to have the answer. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good question.
Great question. Thank you, Commissioner Hampton. Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Pepe. Ms. Garza, good morning. And after all these years, we're still learning things, Commissioner Hampton. Right? Every Thursday.
Good morning. Item number 8 is KZ 223-259. The request is an application for an amendment to deed restriction Z856-134 on property zone in MF2A multifamily district. It is located on the west line of Old Hickory Trail, south of West Wheatland Road, approximately 3.747 acres. And this is the location map. It's on the south of Dallas. The aerial map. So this is the site in blue. Surrounding uses around the site: general merchandise or food store greater than 100,000 square feet to the north, multifamily, undeveloped, and again, multifamily towards the south and the west. The west. And then there's undeveloped and office showroom to the east. So the area request is currently undeveloped and is on an MF2A multifamily district with deed restrictions, Z856-134. On August of 2015, the City Council approved an MF2A multifamily district on property zone in RR regional retail district with deed restrictions. The applicant is proposing to develop multifamily. However, deed restrictions Z856-134 prohibit residential uses on the site. Thus, they are requesting to amend the deed restrictions to permit residential uses on this property. So these are some of the site photos. On-site looking west, looking southwest, looking south, looking north again, and then surrounding uses. On-site looking south, looking southeast, looking east, looking northeast, looking north, and then staff's recommendation is approval.
Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Carpenter.
At the time the zoning was changed back in 2015 from RR to MF, the intention was to build a nursing convalescent home, which never happened. Okay, so now they're wanting to do multifamily. It seems to me that most of the deed restrictions aren't pertinent at all to MF zoning. Was there a comprehensive look taken at these deed restrictions? Because they're prohibiting bar and restaurant uses, which aren't allowed in MF, motor vehicle related uses, all kinds of retail uses. It talks about elevated loading docks and total floor area for all retail uses. It just seems like most of it is not pertinent. Or so no structure may exceed 40 feet in height. Well, MF, the limit's 36 feet. I was just wondering about the general applicability of the deed restrictions when the base zoning is MF.
Yes, so the deed restrictions were prior to the rezoning of the actual regional, from regional retail to MF2A. So those deed restrictions were back, I believe, in like the 1980s, where all that strip along that, I believe the street, Hickory Trail, it was going to be, they were proposing to do all commercial, and that's why they did all those deed restrictions. And then back in 2015, this property owner bought the whole entire, those lands, and that's when they proposed to do the convalescent and nursing homes, hospice, and because none of the deed restrictions were going to be within the use, they didn't need to amend those, so they just kept them as is.
Okay, but is Tract D all this particular site? Is it the MF2 site?
So this site is just, the Tract D is only that blue portion. So the owner actually owns the whole entire rectangular site to the west, but they're only amending this because Tract D is just in that blue portion that they own.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Treadway, please.
So I have an education question. So when the base zoning is changed, it doesn't impact existing deed restrictions that were in place?
That I'm aware of.
Okay. I find that confounding, but
Yeah, so
that's
that's-
not a question. I don't, that seems to be very counterintuitive.
That's kind of one point to make related to your point, Commissioner Treadway, and to Commissioner Carpenter's point, is that, we have base zoning as a layer. We have overlay districts like D and D1 as an additional layer, but that's really still part of standard zoning. And then we can have all these other layers. And one of those layers of additional regulation on a property is applicant volunteered, publicly enforced, city-involved deed restrictions. And those deed restrictions, as Liliana mentioned, were for a particular point in time. And they don't change unless we amend them at some point in the future. They don't change with standard zoning, base districts, overlays, et cetera. Typically, when deed restrictions are volunteered, currently and in the past, it is to make a proposal on a piece of property more attractive or amenable or whatever to decision makers at that time. So what we can see a lot with those deed restrictions is regulations for that one particular point in time, but really not any further history or context on those decisions that were made, because that's just not part of the deed restrictions document. Sometimes we can go back into that case file from 1982 or something and look at a case report that might have some additional context. But because deed restrictions are usually a call from decision makers, that's not really going to be encompassed in a staff authored case report. So we can run into trouble like this over time.
Yeah, it just seems if you have layers of land use, your base zoning is your first layer.
Correct.
And then you would do deed restrictions based on what that base zoning permits. And if the base zoning is changed, my brain would think that you start anew, and if you wanted to do deed restrictions, you would do them anew, and they would relate to the new base zoning.
Yes.
I'll put this in the hopper for things maybe to think about when we look at amendments to the development code, because
Sure.
this does seem very counterintuitive.
But just one additional point to make about that is that deed restrictions are an entirely separate item. They're an entirely separate set of regulations that are separate from zoning districts. So zoning districts can change over time. The
I hear that.
regulations of those can, but deed restrictions are entirely separate from that.
Is that the right answer, is my point?
I'm not in a position to answer that question, but just further information for the commission.
It seems like it's one extra step that we shouldn't have to go through if the base zoning is being approved as a change. I hear you that currently the deed restrictions are a different part of something. It just seems very counterintuitive that they would drag in a way that doesn't actually apply to the base zoning.
And
Base zoning should control.
And another hiccup with deed restrictions is because, as we always, I instruct my staff to say this, and I instruct everyone to use this language, they are volunteered by the applicant, volunteered by the property owner. We as city staff, you as decision makers, cannot compel in any kind of legal way an applicant to volunteer deed restrictions. So if later on, when this property was rezoned to MF2, there may have been the question at that time, would you mind amending your deed restrictions to comply with current zoning? That property owner at that time was under no legal obligation to do so. They can just say, no, I don't feel like it. We're going to keep them as is and move forward.
Commissioner Rubin. Oh.
I just wanted to top everything right. Excellent explanation. Hence why usually staff is very worried and cautions you when accepted deed restrictions that have all things in them.
Commissioner Rubin.
Sorry, just one quick follow-up question. I don't know who it goes to, but this is an example where deed restrictions are in tension with the existing underlying zoning to some extent. Are there times when there could be, multiple successive zoning changes on a property, and the deed restrictions never kind of bump up against the underlying? Like, for example, a deed restriction could, totally hypothetical here, not talking actual code, prohibit a batch plant on a particular property, and a property might go from MF to single family to some sort of retail district, and over the course of that time, it's not a big deal that there are also deed restrictions prohibiting a batch plant, but there are cases like we see today where the deed restrictions and the intended uses are kind of an underlying zoning are at loggerheads.
That is correct, and this is, every zoning case is unique. This is why we constantly say each zoning case is evaluated on its own merit, because no two contexts are exactly the same. And then I'll add another point. So in your scenario, you said, okay, it changes from R75 to CR to MF to IR, whatever. Those are zoning changes. An applicant, a private property owner files an application on a piece of property to rezone it. However, in this instance, because it spans across 1987 when 51A was adopted, it's possible, this is again a hypothetical, but it's possible a property can be zoned MF2, which is the Chapter 51 version of the current MF2A, And then, it has deed restrictions volunteered on it at that time. And then a new code is adopted. That's an effort that we have just kicked off last year. And the regulations of that district change, not because of a zoning change, but because of a code update. So then, again, the context changes again, and perhaps there are new regulations in the new iteration of that district, although the district itself hasn't changed. There could be regulations in that new iteration that conflict with deed restrictions as well. It's just more kind of logistics to consider.
Thank you for that. Any other questions, Commissioners, on this case? We will keep going then. Thank you very much, Ms. Garza. Ms. Bridges, good morning.
This is case number Z223276. This is an application for our Regional Retail District on property zone MU3, a mixed-use district. The purpose of the request is to allow vehicles, display, sales, and service on the site. It's located on the south line of West Mockingbird Lane, north line of Plantation Road, and east of Halls Avenue. It is 1.72 acres. This is the location map. The area map outlined in blue is the area of request. This is the zoning map. To the north is multifamily, to the south is undeveloped. East and west are retail uses. The area request is currently zoned MU3. The property is currently developed with a commercial structure, and it does have multiple suites. The structure was built in 1966. And the area request has frontage on Mockingbird Lane and Plantation Road. The applicant proposes to use the existing structure to allow vehicle display, sales, and service on the site. And to accomplish this, they request an RR Regional Retail District. The next few slides will be pictures of the current site and the surrounding uses. This is on-site again. And these are the surrounding uses on West Mockingbird Lane. Again on West Mockingbird Lane. West Mockingbird Lane again. And these are the development standards. And staff recommends approval.
Questions, Commissioner Hampton?
Thank you, Ms. Bridges. You mentioned the Trinity River Corridor Plan in your case report. Could you speak to how you also evaluated the Stemmons Medical District, which is also part of this area?
Yes, ma'am. The Stemmons Corridor, the main goal is to make it more walkable. So the current use, the business has actually been operating since 2015, and it's just a small strip within the medical corridor. So because they are expanding, I thought it would be a good idea to recommend approval because they're not doing anything different, although the land use is to make it more walkable.
So part of the Southwest Medical District, I think, envisions Mockingbird partly to be a residential and supporting to the surrounding medical district, larger medical district. So would it be fair that the retail use, you thought regional retail supported that larger vision, even though it's removing the residential component? Is that
yes,
correct?
that is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Bridges.
Commissioner Treadway.
Ms. Bridges, did you say that the current use is going to stay the same, they're just expanding?
Yes, ma'am.
So are they permitted to have that use under the current zoning?
Well, the current use that they have right now is auto service. What they're trying to do is vehicle display. So right now, that is not allowed in the current MU zoning.
And are they conducting that activity that's not currently allowed?
I'm not for sure about that. I didn't see it. Only thing I can tell you is the business is existing.
Thank you.
Second round, Commissioner Hampton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Bridges, and I know the applicant is here as well, this is on consent. I was able to speak to the owner. I'm not going to be able to phrase this as a question. I can't quite get there, but I did ask.
Were you aware?
Were you aware? Thank you. I was searching for my words. Were you aware that the current business is only service and that they are seeking to add sales and leasing? So while that is the reason for the request before us today, service is allowed in MU3, sales and leasing is not, which has led to the request before us.
Yes, ma'am, I'm aware of that.
Thank you, and thank you for the assist, Mr.
And
Chair.
the applicant is shaking his head yes. For the record, Commissioner Carpenter.
I have an are you aware also. Are you aware in these cases where we have a straight zoning change from one zoning category to another, it's very helpful for us if you include a chart that shows us what uses are enabled in the new zoning that weren't in the old. I did go through and I didn't find anything troublesome, but it is very helpful.
Thank you for that recommendation. Any other questions, commissioners, on this item? Okay, we'll keep going. Thank you very much, Mr. Bridges. We'll go with Mr. Clinton. Case number 10, commissioners, has been taken off consent, will be heard individually. Actually, I don't see Commissioner Herbert online. He may be on his way. Oh, there he is. I see him now. Okay, we're good. And Commissioner Wheeler is joined us 10:40 a.m. for the record. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing? This is item number 10, case Z223333. It is an application for a specific use permit for commercial motor vehicle parking use on property zoned industrial manufacturing located on the east side of Duncanville Road at intersection of West Keast Boulevard and South Walton Walker Boulevard. Approximately 20.64 acres in size. Here is our location map. Here is our aerial map. This is our zoning map. Surrounding uses to the north, there's industrial retail. To the east, residential uses. To the south, also industrial uses. And then to the west, industrial retail. So it's currently undeveloped land with an existing parking lot to the southwest corner of the site. The lot sits at intersection and has frontage on Duncanville Road, West Keast Boulevard, and South Walton Walker Boulevard. Again, the request is for a specific use permit to allow commercial vehicle parking use. The specific use permit would expire in 3 years. And this SUP is triggered due to the residential uses within 500 feet of the site. Again, those residential uses are adjacent to the east of the site. Here we have some site visit photos. This is on South Walton Walker Boulevard looking toward the property, so west. This is also on South Walton Walker Boulevard looking northwest. Here we're on South Walton Walker Boulevard looking northeast. Same location, but looking southwest, or I'm sorry, southeast. Here we're on Keast Boulevard, West Keast Boulevard looking west. This is adjacent to the site, but looking west. again on West Keys Boulevard, looking toward the property. Same location, looking east. This is on Duncanville Road, looking north. Here we have the proposed SUP conditions. This is their proposed site plan. And staff recommendation is approval for a 3-year period, subject to site plan and conditions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, commissioners?
Yeah.
Commissioner
if I
Herbert,
can.
please.
I'd like to start. Mr. Clinton, are you aware that this applicant also owns property along the same corridor?
I am.
Okay. So currently, are you aware that there's been some concerns about after our last winter freeze that a lot of their landscaping has died off and the trees, and it's just not a good look. So did you notice that when you were on site?
Commissioner Herbert, is that the, I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of your question. Was that the area of request that you're referring to?
It is not.
That is beyond the scope of what's before the body. This is just the property that's under consideration.
Thank you. So can you talk about what the landscaping plan is for this corridor that's surrounded by 3 major intersections?
Yes, so the applicant has provided a landscape plan and it has been approved, and I can send that to you if you would like to review that in further detail. But their landscaping is compliant. I have spoken with our experts in the landscape department as well as the arborist department, and they can confirm that.
Okay, thank you. The next question is about the fencing around the property. Currently, there's a lot of barbed wire fencing. Do you know if this applicant has plans to use barbed wire? Because on the area that's 500 feet from the residential, I think there are restrictions on the use of barbed wire, but can you speak to that at all?
Yes, so based on the zoning, the use of barbed wire is allowed as long as sorry, I'm just trying to find my points here. So as long as it is, it's allowed in non-residential districts, and it has to be 6 feet or more above grade. And I think that for this proposed site, that will be a question that is more appropriate for the applicant in terms of what their intent with barbed wire, if they want to use barbed wire or not. I think that would be better suited for the applicant.
Gotcha. So, and the question regarding the 500 feet proximity to residential and the use of barbed wire, is that not the case, or are you aware, or can you look into that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
In the case of residential areas being 500 feet within the proximity of this commercial site, I was, under my previous history or experience, there was restrictions of use of barbed wire when there was a 500 feet proximity to residential.
Yes, to my knowledge, as long as the barbed wire does not go beyond the property line and again is above 6 feet above grade, then the barbed wire is allowed.
Okay, thank you. My last question is about the ingress and egress of the site. I didn't see, didn't see that there was a delineation of the ingress and egress, but I know that the residential area across the street has a lot of trouble coming out of their neighborhood. Can you talk about the ingress and egress of this site on Walton Rogers at all?
Yes, so based on the approved and stamped plans, the proposed site will have approximately 3 access points. I cannot confirm which one will be primarily used. I think that, those visiting the site will make the best decision and use the access point that is more convenient for them, depending on the direction that they're traveling from. and adjacent roadway conditions will adequately handle the projected truck traffic. We did receive stamped and approved plans as well as a confirmation from TxDOT. And I also have David from engineering in case you have any further questions about that.
Commissioner Carpenter.
The staff report seemed to indicate that the use that's been going on at this site is an outside storage use. Is that correct?
That's correct. That is one of the uses.
Only one, because the site plan makes it very clear that this is already operating as a commercial motor vehicle parking without benefit of the proper permits. At the present time, they have 71 spaces for existing trailer parking, and they have trucks, 37 trucks. And the proposal is to increase the number of trucks to a total of 87 and the number of trailers to 288 spaces. So it's an expansion of a commercial motor vehicle parking lot.
Yes.
Okay.
If I could jump in on that one real quick. So the only thing under consideration with this case is if the commercial motor vehicle parking use should be permitted by SUP. As Mr. Clinton stated, this site already has an approved site plan, landscape plan, et cetera, from Development Services, and there are a few different existing uses on the property. It's primarily a trucking company. There is also a CO for outside storage on the lot. However, in the permit review process, they were sent to us because they were told they need an SUP to allow that commercial motor vehicle parking use. So those other uses I mentioned, I believe are permitted by right in the current zoning district. But in order to have commercial motor vehicle parking specifically, they need this SUP before they can legally do that.
Correct, I understand that. But the issue for me is the existence and expansion of commercial motor vehicle parking that close to residential neighborhoods. And there's a statement here that staff is comfortable that an 8-foot fence is sufficient to mitigate the problems associated with this use for the adjoining neighborhoods. And as someone who has lived within 500 feet of a commercial motor vehicle parking lot, a much smaller one than this, I can tell you that is absolutely not the case, but that's a statement, not a question. Are you aware that there are considerable problems with these uses close to residential neighborhoods in terms of the hours of operation, that diesel trucks tend to get started up at 5 o'clock in the morning and roar for hours, the amount of fumes that are emitted by potentially 87 trucks? And I guess my question here is there truly a staff belief that one 8-foot fence is adequate to deal with the noise and the air pollution from this type of use?
I want to first comment and say I'm not sure where that particular statement is coming from. However, the applicant is suggesting and proposing buffers along that east side of the property to mitigate any noise or visual excuse me, any noise or visual pollution from the site.
Are you aware that the visual pollution, just seeing the trucks, is not really the problem? Do you believe that, I'm sorry I have to ask these in a strange way because it's questions, do you believe that a fence and the normal landscape buffer required when you have adjoining uses like this is sufficient to deal with the noise and the pollution from all these trucks?
If implemented properly, yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rubin.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit more or ask some questions about ingress and egress, and I'm not sure if this goes to you, Mr. Clinton, or if this may be Mr. Navarro's question. I see the 3 instances. There's one on Walton Walker, there's one on Keast, and there's one on Duncanville. And the entrance on ingress-egress on Walton Walker is across from that neighborhood, correct?
Correct.
Is that ingress egress required by city engineering standards or something else? Or is that just what the applicant would like to do?
Based on my review and the existing site plan as well as the proposed site plan, it looks to me that they had an existing driveway there. So they were making use of that existing driveway to be compliant with engineering standards, traffic standards as well.
Okay, I followed that they're making use of that existing driveway. Now there's likely 3 driveways on their SUP site plan. If there were just the one on Keast and just the one on Duncanville, would that suffice for engineering and code purposes, or would that third ingress egress along Walton Walker Loop 12 also be required?
I think David would be more in a better position to answer that question.
Okay, thanks.
David, Navarez Engineering. Good morning, Commissioners. I felt like I couldn't help answer that question because I want to let the Commission know that, in fact, the applicant submitted engineering sets of plans in 2021. We've been reviewing them since then, unbeknownst to all of us that there be the need for an SUP. I'm very happy that they're here getting your input. I wish we all had caught that in 2021. With that said, we've been reviewing their plans for paving, drainage, water, wastewater, transportation. There was a traffic study associated, required with their development, and subsequent TxDOT's review, an application for TxDOT's review and approval. The assessment of traffic also included the adequacy of their access points. With it came the need for left turn lanes. There's a right turn lane construction already on their plans, southbound on Walton Walker, and then modifications to all 3 driveways. I understand, and I would relay this to the applicant, there is a specific management for each driveway. Not all of them are would allow an entrance. Some of them would be gated and controlled, specifically the one on the left side, Duncanville. So as far as answering the question related to whether or not 3 access points are adequate, I do know that we've reviewed all 3 of them, and all 3 of them meet city standards and have been modified to comply with city standards as well.
In digging into the site plan, there's actually a reference to a emergency access gate on Keast. So their thought is, rather than use that gate for ingress egress, push one, to the, I guess, along Keast near the Walton Walker intersection, put the other on Walton Walker near the Keast intersection across from that neighborhood, right?
Yes. Yes, sir. Los Robles is right on line on Walton Walker.
Mm-hmm.
One access point would suffice for that access point. But Walton Walker, of all 3 access points, Walton Walker is the, in my opinion, the route that has direct access to major thoroughfares, Walton Walker being a major thoroughfare. Yeah. I'm of the opinion that creating an additional access point from Keast relieves that one access point that is shared with a residential community. So I would say their access on Walton Walker is needed for this site. I'm borderline speaking on behalf of the developer. Okay. I don't like that, so this would be a question for them. But I do believe that their access on Walton Walker is sufficient and meets city standards. I believe that the access on Keast benefits the community because it now provides an alternative of access from that same access point.
So there's a certain tension there because would it be fair to say there's a tension there because the neighborhood across on Los Robles also happens to be sited across from the most major thoroughfare that bounds the site?
Yes, so, I mean, it's a residential street, and therefore,
Got it. All right, thank you so much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Navarro.
Commissioner Hampton, followed by Commissioner Treadway.
Thank you. Mr. Clinton, just a few follow-up questions. On the buffer, as it's shown on the plan, it's 30 feet from the property line. It looks like the setback from the fence is about 24 feet. What is the minimum required buffer?
I'm sorry, are you looking at the site plan or
The site plan on the east side with the residential adjacency?
And the question was, what's the minimum?
Yes.
To my knowledge, the minimum is a 6-foot buffer.
Okay. And so they're a bit over that. And I guess I'm trying to understand the maneuvering and operations. Some of this other questions, I had a question similar to Vice Chair Rubin about the access off of Walton Walker. So I think we've covered that fairly well. The conditions also note that the screening is required on the east side as shown on the site plan. There's one note that calls out a security fence, but it appears that that security fence is continuous around the site. Was there any discussion with the applicant about what type of screening will be provided other than the height?
So the discussion that happened regarding the screening for that particular side of the site between myself and the applicant really was more so to make sure that they are meeting certain requirements for that buffer that they're proposing. Now, we could have further discussions if height is an issue, right? Because I think that's what I'm hearing as a common theme here. Height being an issue and maybe wanting a higher or a taller buffer on that side.
So it's noted as 8 feet, but it doesn't speak to what the material is, just that it's solid.
Yes.
So was there any conversation about the type of material that might be?
Thank you for clarification. No, so there was no conversation that was had pertaining to the material. Based on my site visit, it looks like an aluminum fencing, but I think that is something that you can confirm with the applicant.
Okay, and then just two quick follow-ups on that. You mentioned that the landscape plan has already been reviewed by the arborist and approved. Is there planting in what's being referred to as the buffer, this 24-foot zone?
Yes, there is, and I can also send that to you after.
That might be helpful, I think, to understand what that is. And then final question, and this may actually be for Mr. Moore. As this is an SUP and as there is residential adjacency, if this body were to find that razor wire was not compatible with the surrounding community, would that be something that could be included in the SUP conditions?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Treadway.
I'm going to follow up on Vice Chair Rubin's questions. Could we add to the conditions that they can only use the ingress and egress on Walton Walker at specific times?
I think that could be included.
Can we also, I think you mentioned that there is a gate on the Duncanville side, which makes me think that might not be the primary. Is there a way to add additional conditions where the use of the ingress and egress on Walton Walker is minimized?
So again, based on my site visit, it looks as though the entrance on Duncanville is the primary access as of right now, because again, the existing structure and existing parking is in that south or northwest corner of the site. So again, that seems to be their main point of access right now. I do understand the concerns with making Walton Walker less accessible or less busy during the day to honor the the residential uses to the east. So that is something that I could bring up to the applicant.
But like we could limit it to just weekdays, we could limit it to certain hours. Do we know if there's any school buses traveling for this residential area? it would be good to not have a bunch of trucks on Walton Walker if children are being transported to
I
school.
understand. Yeah, I think that is something that I could just have a conversation with the applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? I have one just quick follow-up, Mr. Clinton. You mentioned the 30-foot enhanced buffer, landscape buffer there on the east side. Do you know if the applicant considered increasing that? I know we've seen other cases, I think the last one maybe in D8, where we significantly increased that, in fact. Is there any discussion about that?
And just for clarification, you mean increasing the width of the buffer or the
Correct.
setback? The
Yeah.
width of the buffer? No, there was no conversation about that, but it is something I could bring up.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clinton.
Thank you.
Mr. Kirk.
Good afternoon, good morning.
Oh, he's online. Good morning.
Are you able to see this? Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Great. So this is Z223341. It's a renewal of SUP number 2066 at 1909 West Jefferson Boulevard. So as mentioned, this is the request for a renewal of SUP number 2066 to allow the sale of beer and wine for a general merchandise or food store less than 3,500 square feet. It's located at the northwest intersection of West Jefferson Boulevard and North Brighton Avenue. It's currently zoned community retail with a D1 liquor control overlay. It's roughly 11,000 square feet, or just over 11,000 square feet, and it's in Council District 1. So you can see here is the location of the site. So the purpose of the request is to continue to allow the sale of alcohol in the general merchandise store at 3,500 square feet or less. And the request is for an approval period of 5 years with the eligibility for automatic renewals for an additional 5-year periods. The original SUP was approved in September of 2016, and the applicant did miss their auto renewal window. So here is the aerial map of the site. It's borders single family to the north, as well as to the east, and then there's an auto service use directly west, and then across Jefferson there's existing parking and retail. Here's the zoning for the site. There is a multifamily zone property as well as a duplex just to the north, but those are currently developed with single family units. So here's a picture of from Brighton looking west. Once again, from Brighton looking west. Then on Jefferson looking north, and then on Jefferson looking northwest. Apologize for the pixely picture. And here's the site plan, and then an enlarged site plan as well. Staff's recommendation is approval for a 5-year period with eligibility for automatic renewals for additional 5-year periods subject to amended conditions.
Thank you, sir. Questions? No questions. We will keep going. Case number 12. Ms. Garza, back to you.
Item number 12 is KZ 234-102. The request is an application for an amendment for a specific use permit number 2068 for a bar, lounge, or tavern on property zone Tract A within Plan Development District number 269, the Deep Ellum Near East Side District. It is located on the east corner of Main Street and Exposition Avenue, approximately 10,629 square feet. This is the aerial map of the site in blue. Surrounding uses, to the north, there's a general merchandise or food store less than 3,500 square feet and commercial amusement. There's also personal service use. There's surface parking and another general merchandise or food store less than 3,500 square feet to the west. Yes, to the west. To the southeast, there's an office, and then there's surface parking to the north. The area request is developed with an existing one-story, approximately 1,803 square feet building and a 395 square foot pergola deck. On January of 2014, City Council approved the specific use permit number 2068 for a bar, lounge, or tavern for a 2-year period. And then in 2015, City Council approved SUP number 2068 for a 3-year period. And then in February of 2019, City Council approved the SUP 2068 for a 5-year period. The applicant is requesting continuation of this SUP. These are some of the site photos. On-site looking north, on-site looking east again, looking southwest, then surrounding uses, on-site looking south, looking southwest, looking west, looking northwest, then looking north, and then looking northeast, and then on Main Street looking southwest, on Exposition Avenue looking north, and then this is the existing site plan, landscaping plan. There's no changes to the site plan, and then staff's recommendation is approved for a 5-year period subject to amended conditions.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes, was anything received from the Deep Ellum Association about this renewal? We normally get some sort of email or communication from them giving us their opinion.
No, I have not received any that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
I see Commissioner Hampton reaching for the button.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Ms. Garza, are you aware that the Deep Ellum Foundation has regularly reviewed and is aware of this request?
No, I'm not aware.
Okay, well, they have reviewed and are aware of the request. I'll state that. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair.
Okay. Did you have a question, Commissioner Treadway?
I just have a nomenclature question. Is this just a renewal of the existing, or is it truly an amendment and there are amended conditions?
It's just a renewal.
Okay, so what does subject to amended conditions mean?
When we say subject to amended conditions, that means for a renewal like this, if no of the other conditions are changing, it's just an amendment to the time limit condition, which has to be changed with the new expiration date of the SUP.
But just to confirm, the time limit being requested is 5 years, which was the same time limit as the previous SUP.
If you look at the SUP conditions in a council adopted ordinance, it doesn't say 5 years from the date of approval. It says the exact date that it will expire. Yeah.
Okay, again, mine was a nomenclature question. So no changes to what's been happening for the past year, 5 years.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? All right. Next item.
Mr. Vice Chair, we're going to be holding this item. It doesn't need to be
Okay,
briefed.
great.
Thank you.
All right. Then we're on to item 14. You said holding till March 7th?
Holding to March 7th.
Good morning, Commissioners. Can y'all can't see that, of course. All right. Good morning. This is case Z234-105. It is an application for a CR Community Retail District on property zoned in LI Light Industrial District with a D1 liquor control overlay. It is located on the northeast corner of South Buckner Boulevard and Moberly Lane, approximately 1.53 acres in size. And just as a point of clarification, on the docket itself, it says a CRD1 district. They are proposing to maintain the D1 liquor control overlay. It was located here in the far eastern section of Dallas. This is the aerial map showing the property as it is. There's South Buckner Boulevard there in the center. With the zoning map here, we see that there are a variety of uses around this property. There's a use classified as office showroom / warehouse directly to the east. North of the site is undeveloped. To the south is a variety of general merchandise or food stores, personal service uses, office buildings, etc. And then multifamily to the west on the other side of South Buckner Boulevard. As I mentioned, currently zoned in LI Light Industrial District with a D1 liquor control overlay. It's currently developed with a one-story building that is unoccupied. The lot has frontage on South Buckner Boulevard and Moberly Lane. The applicant proposes to develop the property with a funeral home. In order to accomplish this, they are requesting the CR Community Retail District. Here we are on South Buckner Boulevard looking east, and as you can see, there's actually sort of an access road or service road that's runs alongside of South Buckner Boulevard. Looking to the northeast, and then to the north, we're just going to kind of slowly turn around 360 degrees. There you see that multifamily that I mentioned. And then towards the southwest at the intersection of Moberly and South Buckner. This is just taking some steps closer, so on the other side of that service road, looking directly at the subject site, and then to the southeast. Here we're on the corner of Buckner and Moberly. Looking south, there are those various general merchandise, personal service uses, etc. Looking north at the subject site, and then to the northeast, and way in the background is that use that, again, classified as office showroom / warehouse. Here's a comparison of the development standards for these two zoning districts. Existing is the LI Light Industrial, proposed is the CR Community Retail. Fairly similar in terms of setbacks. There's no front setback requirement, or there's a front setback of 15 feet. There's no minimum side or rear setback. The floor area ratios are somewhat different. It's specifically with CR is 0.5 for office uses and 1.0 for all uses combined. CR does have a lower height limit than LI. It's also a little less intensive in terms of lot coverage. The difference in primary uses is CR is one of the less intensive retail type districts for, again, retail, personal service, office uses. LI, that starts getting into more of, kind of as it says on the label, light industrial uses, but nothing too heavy. There are some additional setback requirements when you are adjacent to or directly across an alley from residential type districts, as well as residential proximity slope requirements that would come into play if this were next to a residential property. Staff recommendation is approval.
Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Hall.
Thank you. What's on site right now? The aerial shows a building.
Yes, I believe it was a fraternal lodge, as it were, sort of a Elks Lodge type of organization, but I believe it is currently unoccupied. It was bought by the.
Do they plan to use that building or to build something new?
Yeah, I believe they do. I reviewed a site plan, which, to remind, is not part of this consideration here for general zoning change, but I believe they intend to repurpose the building for the mortuary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Carpenter.
This is an educational question because I think in my 6 years we haven't had a request for a funeral home or mortuary, but does that include also the right to run a crematorium?
That I'm actually Not entirely sure of. I want to say that a crematorium would be a separate use, but I can.
I was
pull
looking
that
through,
up.
I could not find a use that
Yes.
seemed to match up to me. That,
Let me find that very quick. Yes, mortuary or funeral home is the use.
and I can wait for the answer. There's no
Sure.
reason to hold up the briefing. But
Yeah, no, that is
it
a
didn't-
good question, and let's find out.
We'll get that offline.
Yeah.
Any other questions, commissioners? Yes.
Were you aware that the business that is actually bought the building has been a longstanding mortuary in Pleasant Grove for quite some time?
I
Over
am.
50 years, about 50 years?
I am. I looked them up when I was doing my initial research, and I saw that they've been around for quite a while. Certainly an institution, I think.
All right.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, we'll keep going.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Stay with you, case number 15.
Yeah, little marathon here. All right, case is Z234-109. This is an amendment of specific use permit number 2181 for a tattoo studio on property zone sub-district Tract A within Planned Development District number 269, the Deep Elm Near East Side District. It's located on the south line of Elm Street and approximately 4,791 square feet in size for the building overall. The request area itself is, I believe, 1,100 to 1,200 square feet. Located in Deep Elm. Here's the aerial map showing the building and then specifically the suite in which the tattoo studio is located. Here's the zoning map, typical for this part of Deep Elm, a mix of uses including a restaurant without drive-in, commercial amusement inside to the north, an alcoholic beverages establishment, a general merchandise or food store, and surface parking to the south. The property is currently developed with a tattoo studio, and it's an existing tattoo studio with a 1,264 square feet of floor area. City Council previously approved the renewal of SUP number 2181 for a 5-year period on February 13th, 2019. The SUP expires on February 13th of this year, and the applicant filed for renewal on September 13th of last year. They're requesting the amendment for a 5-year period to continue operation of tattoo studio. They do not propose any changes to the existing conditions or site plan. And in PD 269, it's worth noting that tattoo studios must be at least 300 feet away from all other tattoo and body piercing studios on the same street. Looking at the location of tattoo studios there, the nearest one is about 850 feet away, so well within those regulations there. Here we are on Elm Street looking south at the subject site. To the east, then the northeast, across the way, to the northwest, and to the west. This is the existing site plan. There are no changes proposed. Might be a little hard to see, but again, see here that there's the overall building, and then specifically is this long, narrow studio or suite within the building. Staff recommendation is approval for a 5-year period, subject to amended conditions.
Thank you, sir. Questions? Yes. Commissioner Treasury, please. I'm sorry.
Is there a reason it's not an auto renew? Do we always just make sure that like tattoo parlors come up for just 5 years so that they have to come back in front of us? It's a curiosity question. This is my first tattoo studio case.
Sure. My first case with one as well. I went with the 5-year period as that's what was requested by the applicant. I think that generally with the auto renewals, it depends on whether, I think it would depend on kind of the longevity of the business, and it's up to the property owner to some, or not the property owner, but the business owner to some respect to determine, okay, do we plan to stay here for a while or not?
Thank you.
Commissioner Hampton.
Thank you. Mr. Bate, are you aware that part of the review by the Deep Elm Foundation also takes into account whether or not there's a lease period relative to uses as they're evaluating SUP requests?
I was unaware.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, next case, please.
All right. This is case Z234-112. The amendment of specific use permit number 2220 for sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with a restaurant without drive-in or drive-through service on property zone CR Community Retail with a D1 liquor control overlay. It is located on the southwest line of PB Road and is approximately 1,000 square feet. Here it is, sort of the northeastern, central northeastern section of the city. Aerial map showing the subject site and the zoning map showing a mix of uses. It's a neat little development where you have these, there's a restaurant without a drive-in, there's a liquor store use nearby, dry cleaning and laundry, and then next to it is a duplex use as well as the R7.5A. It's currently developed with a restaurant without drive-in service with 1,140 square feet of floor area. The City Council approved SUP number 2220 for a 2-year period for the sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with a restaurant without drive-in or drive-through service on November 9th, 2016, with eligibility for automatic renewals for additional 5-year periods. The SUP expired on November 9th of last year, and the applicant filed for renewal on October 25th outside of the automatic renewal window. They're requesting amendment of the SUP for a 5-year period to continue the sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with a restaurant without drive-in or drive-through service, and do not propose any changes to the existing conditions or the site plan of the SUP. Here we are on Peavy Street looking northwest. The business is not in the photo, but we just want to get a sense of what the area looks like. Looking northeast away from the shopping center and looking southeast on Peavy Road. Now looking west at the subject site itself and the business. Then stepping away, looking north to kind of highlight that duplex district that was mentioned in the zoning map. And then looking south, this is in front of the subject site itself, showing the parking lot of the shopping center. This is the existing site plan. There are no changes proposed. The staff recommendation is approval for a 5-year period with eligibility for automatic renewal for additional 5-year periods subject to amended conditions.
Questions? Any questions on this item? Okay, seeing none, let's keep going. Mr. Bate, you have the hot hand, sir. Number 17.
All right. Case Z234-113. An application for an amendment to specific use permit number 1933 for the sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with a general merchandise or food store, 3,500 square feet or less, on property zoned in MU1 D1 mixed use district with a D1 liquor control overlay. It's located on the southwest corner of South Zang Boulevard and Suffolk Street, approximately 11,674 square feet. Here it is in sort of the southern central part of the city over in Oak Cliff. Here's an aerial map showing the existing property. The zoning map, as we see, it is largely surrounded by single family and has this restaurant to the north as well, restaurant without a drive-in. So it's currently developed with a general merchandise or food store, less than 3,500 square feet, and 2 gas pumps. And on January 25th, 2012, the City Council approved a change from a D liquor control overlay to a D1 liquor control overlay and approved specific use permit number 1933 for a 2-year period with eligibility for automatic renewals for additional 5-year periods. SUP number 1933 was automatically renewed for a 5-year period on January 25th, 2019. It expires on January 25th of this year. And the applicant filed for renewal on October 25th, 2023 after the automatic renewal window. As such, the applicant requests the renewal of the SUP for a 5-year period. And I think I've got my SUP number mixed up in there, but requesting the renewal of the SUP for a 5-year period to continue sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with a general merchandise or food store less than 3,500 square feet and do not propose any changes to the existing SUP. And just to confirm, it's SUP 1933. That was a typo in the top line there. On Suffolk Street, looking south directly at the subject site, looking southwest, then looking to the west at the residential uses, to the northwest, then to the north at that restaurant that I mentioned, to the northeast, to the east. Here we are on the corner of Suffolk and Zhang, looking north, and then to the northeast, looking south, looking southwest directly at the overall site, and then looking south again. This is the existing site plan. There are no changes proposed. It's a bit of a messy site plan photo, but we can see in here how it's been laid out with the parking and whatnot. And staff recommendation is approval for a 5-year period with eligibility for automatic renewal for additional 5-year periods subject to amended conditions.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Carpenter.
I didn't see it in the report, but is this site in compliance with its 12B inspection?
Yes, it is. I might have forgotten to mention that in there, but they did send a copy of their most recent certificate to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Wright.
All right. And as an update on 105, for Ryan, cremation of bodies is under the pathological waste incinerator use. Mortuary, funeral home, it allows the preparation of bodies for cremation. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, we're to case number 18, held under advisement. I think this one has been briefed before, and my understanding is that there are no updates. Do we have any questions on it? Questions, Commissioner Blair, please.
There was an email that was sent out. I received it late last night. I sent it to Liliana and Ms. Pacina this morning. And it kind of answered the outstanding questions. You guys may not have gotten it. You haven't gotten it? It answered some of the outstanding questions that we had from the last hearing. So it did take care of the, I don't know, well, you got Mr., what's your name?
What is my, Pepe?
Pepe, that's right.
Yes. What can I answer for you? So he sent a document late yesterday evening. What can I confirm for you?
So, Mr. Pepe, have you had time to look at those?
Not significantly, only glancing, and I understood it to be something regarding a drainage easement in the rear of the property and something, and then his application for the reconstruction of a driveway on CF Hahn to TxDOT. That's what I understood the two attachments to be, but I didn't give them the full scrutiny that we normally would.
Well, were you aware then that one of the concerns was that it was within the 300 feet of residential proximity, and their architect actually measured it at 400 feet from residential proximity?
I saw that one, and I was confused. I think I had a slide for that. That was just a statement, not an attachment document, so I didn't. So I know there was confusion last time about how that was being looked at, but I don't necessarily concur with that measurement. That's what I was looking at. Just for scale, I mean, that's your R75 line stair step there. That property with that immediate one is either unoccupied or used as car storage. The one at 7406, which is also about 60 feet east-west, that one is a church, but it's all entitled to single family. And then your home, your nearest home is actually more like, your nearest existing single family home is like 200 there in the south from the property line. I mean, it's a question, do you measure from the property line? Do you measure from the center? So.
Can I ask a
yeah.
big favor? Can you make that a little bit bigger so my bifocals work?
And it's a little, well, it looks better on those screens, not too washed out, but that's a measurement, and I can talk about the use of each of those. Blue lines being parcel lines, black being zoning lines, and red being the area of request. It consists of 2 parcels. So, I mean, that's what I was going off of. I don't want to dispute the findings of any one of the applicant team, but that's what went into our analysis was the nearby parcels.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other, Commissioner Rubin?
Yeah, sorry, there was the reference to the email that was sent. I don't want to suggest that Ms. Pacina is being in any way not diligent in her duties, because you all know how hard she works getting ready for CPC. But just to clarify, that email was sent last night and not the night before, January 18th.
It was January 31st at 7:43 p.m.
Okay. Okay. Great. Well, I would love to be able to, if we could see that, that would be fantastic.
I think it will. Yeah, I didn't know it was something necessarily that he wanted distributed broadly. Didn't explicitly mention that, but she asked that it would be this morning, so I'm sure we can get that for y'all. And a lot of it is, as she said, kind of narrative, which he plans on being here today, so he can also explain it in narrative at that time.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions, Commissioners? We'll get that email, some lunch reading for us. Go to case number 19 that I think has been briefed before. Okay, we have updates and we do have questions. We'll go right to questions on this item since it's been briefed before. Commissioner Hampton, please.
Thank you. Mr. Clinton, just a couple of questions. Are you aware if there's been community outreach on this request?
Community outreach on whose end?
Applicant or just any feedback from the community on the proposed change?
I'm not aware of anything on the applicant's end, and I have not received anything from the community.
Okay, I think there may have been some transmittals that came through late last evening, so we'll try to make sure that the commissioners have those before our meeting this afternoon. As staff evaluated this request, is it correct that the deed restrictions, while it's base CS zoning, the deed restrictions effectively have it as CR as the base?
That's correct.
And there's the one allowed use, and there's hours of operation, the 8-foot screening, the other conditions that are there, because there's no separation between this use and the adjacent residential. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay. Could you just outline at a high level what the difference is between a community retail and a commercial service district, the CR and the CS?
Yes. So community retail CR district the purpose is to provide the development of community serving retail, personal service, and office uses at a scale and intensity compatible with residential communities. Commercial service CS district, the purpose is to provide for the development of commercial and business serving uses that may involve outside storage, service, or display. And this district is not intended to be located in areas of low and medium density residential.
Thank you. And so as staff evaluated the request, and the area has some substantial CS zoning that's around the Haskell corridor, and then there's the fingers of the residential that go, I'm going to say it's truly north, but kind of north and west from the site. Is that, how did you all think about that in the recommendation for approval?
I'm sorry, can you clarify the question?
I know, I'm sorry I didn't ask that very well. It's just staff's recommendation is for approval. The CR is a less intense district that's intended to be adjacent to residential. The CS is not. I know some of it were responding to existing conditions, but I was just curious in your evaluation if there were concerns about the proximity of the residential and losing some of the protections that are there today.
Yes, that's fair. So that is something that is always at the forefront of my evaluations, honoring the existing residential uses. So with this particular application, the applicant is proposing to terminate the deed restrictions, basically to remove the heavy machinery use so that they can just operate in their base zone. Now, the conversation I had with the applicant is if they were to go back to their base zoning, they would have to ensure that they are meeting certain requirements within that base zoning that again honors the residential uses. So any setbacks or buffers, anything that again is listed in the code.
But isn't it correct that the heavy machinery is allowed by right in a CS district?
That's correct. And
So-
based on my communication with the applicant, they are no longer looking to do that particular use, which is why they have requested the removal of the deed restrictions.
Okay, and are you aware that this site was previously reviewed by this body in 2020? Essentially, at that time, that owner was expanding the business and wanted to look at how the site was being used, how some buildings were oriented on the site that were perhaps not compatible with the deed restrictions?
Yes, so I did do a brief evaluation of previous cases, but I can't really speak to anything that was within that purview prior to my time here.
Okay, and then again, were you aware that as part of that conversation that there was substantial community outreach and concern about changes to the use, to the deed restrictions? And is it correct that this is now a new owner and a new applicant, and that's part of the reason why this request is before us today?
I was not aware, and yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item, commissioners? Okay, we'll keep moving. Case number 20 has also been briefed before. Do we have any updates or questions? Okay, we'll go to case number 21, has also been briefed before, my understanding. Do we have any updates or questions on this one? This is 21. No questions. 22, commissioners will be held under advisement until March 7th. That takes us to the individual cases, beginning with case number 23, and Mr. Pepe.
Good morning. Let's see.
Let the record reflect that Commissioner Hauser has a conflict on this item and has stepped out of the chamber.
Okay, so this one is Z223237. And this is located in Oak Lawn. And it's an application for a plan development subdistrict for MF3 multiple family subdistrict uses on property zoned in MF3 multiple family subdistrict within Plan Development District number 193, the Oaklawn Special Purpose District, with a D liquor control overlay on the north corner of Hood Street and Brown Street, and it's about 32,000 square feet. The purpose of the request is to allow for modified development standards primarily related to setbacks, density, lot coverage, floor area ratio, height, design standards, parking, and mixed income housing to develop the site with residential uses. And here's the site today, currently undeveloped, located on a corner, an alley behind it. And so to the north, east, southeast, and southwest, there's multiple family. There's some multiple family to the west, and there's some single family attached to the northwest across the alley. So just the highlights. PD 193 MF3 zoning, currently undeveloped. What they can't meet with their design is primarily the floor area ratio of MF3. They propose to tie increases in FAR to mixed income housing development bonus. And there's a differing in staff recommendation in regards to the MIH percentages. They do have significant design standards that make the project street focused, human scale. Here's the site from Hood at this time. I think I've turned the corner onto Brown. Looking southeast, kind of at the west corner at the alley. I'm walking up the alley now, looking southeast at the adjacent multifamily projects. Now I'm back on Hood, looking up Hood, which is northeast. Now I've gone up Hood, past the project to the northeast to show some of the other multifamily to give an idea of the streetscape on those multifamily projects. Then that's across Hood to the southeast, multifamily. This is the intersection of Hood and Brown. It's a T-bone intersection. And then that's looking northwest on Brown. It's looking more north on the alley. And that's looking northwest on the alley. There's a large multifamily tower to the due north of this project, and that's just the utility yard for that one. And this is the alley looking northeast at the parking for adjacent multifamily. And so here's the development plan as they proposed it. There's a little more detail. Focused a bit on driveways and access when working through the details on this, but access is primarily from Hood and the alley, none on Brown. They did propose a landscape plan, but it does meet the requirements of Part 1 of 193. It is a bit duplicative, but they did wish to show that they're meeting Part 1 landscaping in a graphic form. And here's that again. So as for the development standards, pretty much everything has changed a little bit to meet the nature of the project. I won't go into each of the setbacks, but they do include a degree of setbacks. They modified their height, their setback above 36 feet to a degree. Generally, to meet fire regulations, they have to be a little bit closer to the street. Just a little bit of detail that drove that. And then they capped their unit density to 104 units. We can compare that to the base lot area. It's less dense in that regard. Floor area ratio, the base is still 4.4 to 1, but with the provision of mixed income housing, they call for an increase from 9.2 to 9.26. And they limit their height to 370, whereas they have the any legal height at this time. And they tweak their lot coverage from 60 to 65, but then they reduce it a little bit above 36 feet when they get their building more narrow. And as for the mixed income housing provisions, they're requesting an FAR bonus from 4 to 9.26. and they're proposing 5% at 81 to 100 for the, if they want to get the 5.26. Staff recommends 10% at 61 to 80 AMFI and 5% at 81 to 100 AMFI. And we used MU, the existing menu for MU3 as our guideline for that in the existing MVA because I can go into more detail, but multifamily districts in the base code do not have floor area ratio requirements or maximums. So we looked at MU as a comparable because it does have FAR maximums. And so we used MU3 because of the height and most similar as a kind of a guideline to get us to the bonus, or at least what can kind of guide us towards, well, what would we do if we were in a base code? And that's what got us to 3.0 additional FAR. That's what got us to the 10 and the 5 because the base code calls for 3. This is obviously more than that, but we are approximating something we're tasked to do to a degree when in a type 2 mixed income development bonus. I will cover design standards really quick. Exterior surface parking is prohibited. All parking is required below grade. Staff recommendation is 0.5 parking required minimum in keeping with 4.1107. They requested more than that. Sidewalks are minimum 6 foot unobstructed, and then they are required to have improved driveway crossings, bollards or landscaping between those drive aisles and sidewalks, because there are some drive aisles and drop-offs and other driveways, but they are going to have some kind of buffer in between those on site and the sidewalk. Pedestrian scale lighting that you're likely familiar with from 4.1107, transparency to be evenly spaced, not just on the ground floor, but throughout the facades on each of the streets. Individual entries for ground floor units, should they provide any, 4-foot front yard fencing. Street furniture, 2 on each front, 2 of the following on each frontage. I think there was a minor change since I drafted this slide when it should be each of those. Driveways, there's maximums on the driveway widths and numbers and placements, and then the open space requirement is 10. And there are also performance features, including solar panels, drip irrigation, and micromobility charging stations. And so staff recommendation is approval, subject to a development plan, a landscape plan, and staff's recommended conditions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Commissioner Rubin?
Yeah, I wanted to focus on the unit cap. I know you wrote in your staff report that if they built out the site today without any zoning changes with all one bedrooms, they'd be able to build 324 one-bedroom units on the site. Is that right?
That's correct.
And with the 4-to-1 floor area ratio, do you think they could get somewhere near those 324 units?
I haven't done the math, but generally, a scenario where we have a lower floor area ratio and a higher unit count means it incentivizes lower units or smaller square footage of individual units, and the converse, a lower unit density and a higher FAR incentivizes larger units. So I don't know if, I can't say if the 324 one bedrooms would be feasible given the floor area ratio, but they could have a taller building, skinnier, of course, with smaller square footages potentially if they wanted to push that number. But in this case, it obviously incentivizes slightly larger units, but staff viewed that as something of a diversity of housing question.
Okay. Do you think they'd be anywhere near the cap of 104 units if they built out one-bedroom units of an average size? I know we don't have you haven't done the exact math here, and I apologize for.
You're talking about with the zoning that
they're. No, just at 4-to-1 floor area ratio, and one-bedroom units. Do you think it's feasible to get significantly over 104 one-bedroom units on this site?
I'm not quite sure. Okay. No, I haven't done that math. I could play around, but we'd be only guessing.
If you have some time between now and the public hearing and wanted to do some rough back of the envelope math, I'd be curious to see that. I'm not a design professional, so I may not be able to do that math as intelligently as you are.
I'm all right with floor area ratio math, but getting into the units and floor plates, I'm not as good at. We'll see.
Okay. One other question. Would you consider this an upzoning or a downzoning?
I would say
I like
it's
her
just
answer.
a rezoning.
I like her answer. And frankly, when I have explained this to members of the public who have asked or other people asking, it's really not black and white because it significantly increases the FAR. It doubles the FAR, obviously. It decreases the max legal height. The caveat of the max legal height is that they have Love Field height restrictions that they have to meet regardless of, quote, any legal height. I don't know what those are for this site. Obviously, the 370 height that they requested was approved by FAA, so there's that. But then you're a down zoning in terms of the lot area or the density calculation, and then they kind of break even on lot coverage in my estimation because I included a weighted average. So
okay, that's fair.
Not black and white.
Not black and white. Fair enough. Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Hampton.
Just one question. You have a number of our plans and policy goals included in your staff report, but I did not see the Oaklawn area plan included with its goals and purpose statement. Do you find this proposal consistent with those goals?
I do. My understanding as a practice, we use Oaklawn plan. In some analysis, it's not always taken into account due to the age of it. It obviously influences the PD and the way the PD is scripted, but basically, in a sense, what I know about the document, I would say it's consistent, especially with the urban design goals and parking recommendation that we have.
Well, and I know we've seen it in other case reports, so I just noted its absence, but I appreciate having the additional context that was included. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly.
Commissioner Treadway.
I have a question about parking. Normally, I'm very anti-concrete, but in this case, it looks like all of the parking is required below grade.
The conditions require that all parking is below grade.
So what's staff's rationale for not going with the applicant's suggested conditions of 2 parking spaces instead of the half?
Yes, no, certainly. I mean, there's multiple things, but the standard that, 4.1107 is the design standards for mixed income housing development projects. We try and meet or exceed those on all the projects that have those as best we can. 0.5 is the established minimum in those situations, and it's just one of the bullet points of 4.1107. Reduced parking minimums, that's inapplicability to this project. I could talk for a while about the broader implications of reduced minimums. I understand that when we discussed the 0.5 ratio, they will probably park at a higher ratio than that because we're not imposing a maximum here. But 0.5, or the lower reduced minimum, could have the effect of reducing vehicular traffic at the site because you have less programmed in space. I could talk longer about it, but that's part of it, and it can potentially, again, decrease the amount of concrete and other things that go into the project.
Okay, because I'm just reading from the report, and it says staff recommended conditions include reduced parking minimums, which helps activate private space and generate pedestrian trips.
That's accurate, yes.
How does that apply if it's just all underground parking?
Because if you assist in pedestrian trip gen, then you're activating public space, you're activating the sidewalk and adding pedestrian trips.
So by not having those spaces, you can't have people park. You will force them to be pedestrians.
Nobody's forced, but it incentivizes it certainly. And
Sorry,
it offers the option for people who own less than one vehicle.
Okay.
Any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Kingston.
Michael, can you put that slide back up where you had pictures of the area?
Like the area?
Like maybe the one at Hood and Brown?
Oh, on the ground.
Yeah. So, yeah.
This is looking away from the site.
Right. So all those cars that are parked there? Yeah, that's all. That's all I had. Thanks.
Any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner Hall.
I have to ask Mr. Pepe, what is less than one vehicle?
On average, I'm talking about principals. Like me. I have less than one.
Commissioner Wheeler.
Do you know that if, are they going to take advantage of the other side, that one? Are they going to take advantage of the fee in lieu?
Oh, the fee in lieu. I can't speak to that. They're also not tied to one option or another, so I'm not sure.
We would like to, but the applicant, we'll ask the applicant then, because we would like to know if they're
You
tied.
can do that, yeah.
Which way? Okay, thank you.
Any last questions on this item, commissioners? We'll keep going. That's just ready. Okay, then why don't we go ahead and then take our lunch break now, and maybe we'll pick up these two after. We'll start the hearing with the briefing of the last two, then 24 and 25. So it is 12:03, and that concludes the briefing of the Dallas City Plan Commission. We'll see you at 12:30. Ms. Pacini, can you start us off with the roll call, please?
District 2?
Present.
District 3? District 4 vacant. District 5?
Present.
District 6?
Present.
District 7? Present. District 8?
I'm here.
District 9? District 10?
Present.
District 11? District 11? District 12?
Present.
District 13?
Here.
District 14? Here. Place 15. You have quorum, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pacina. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Dallas City Plan Commission. Today is Thursday, February 1st, 2024, 12:45 p.m. A couple of quick announcements before we get started and jump into the docket. Our speaker guidelines is per our rules, each speaker will receive 3 minutes to speak. Also, per our rules, in cases where we have opposition, the applicant will receive a 2-minute rebuttal. This is a hybrid meeting. We will have some speakers online. I will ask all speakers to make sure you begin your comments with your name and address for the record. For our speakers online, you need to have your camera on and working. State law requires that we see you in order to hear from you. Also, there's these little yellow forms there here on this table there at the bottom right. If you could at some point fill one of them out, we would really like to have a record of your visit with us here today. With that, Commissioners, we're going to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, we had 2 more cases to brief. We will brief those and then get started per the agenda. I think we were on case number 20. 21, I believe.
24.
24. Oh, that's right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kerr. We do see your PowerPoint.
Good afternoon. This is KZ 223330. It's a renewal of SUP number 1532 located at 2815 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. So the request is a renewal of an SUP for a convalescent and nursing home, hospice care, or related institution. It's located at the north corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and South Malcolm X Boulevard. It's currently zoned PD 595. It's the South Dallas Fair Park Special Purpose District, Tract 4, the Community Commercial District. It's on approximately 1.1 acres in Council District 7. As you can see, here is the location of the request. The purpose of the request is, as mentioned, for the renewal to continue as a convalescent and nursing home, hospice care, or related institution. And the request for an approval with the request was for an approval with a permanent SUP for the use. And the SUP was approved in 2003, and the applicant did miss their auto renewal window. So here's the aerial map for the site. So you can see just to the northeast, there is a bank, and to the north and northwest, it's single and multifamily uses. Directly diagonal across Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., there's retail as well as parking. And directly across Malcolm X, that site is currently unused. And directly across Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard are a variety of religious and cultural uses. So here is the zoning map. So you can see it's in PD 595. Here's on the site looking southwest, site looking northeast. There was a dumpster, rollaway dumpster on the site. It has been removed. It's on the site looking southeast, and on Malcolm X Boulevard looking northeast. And here's just in front of the entry to the site, or to the building. Here's the site plan for the use, as well as an enlarged site plan, so you can see that better. And staff's recommendation is approval for a 10-year period with eligibility for automatic renewal for an additional 10-year period subject to insurance.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Commissioners? Commissioner Wheeler.
Is there any particular reason why why wasn't it on the consent agenda?
I am not sure.
It was put on individual because there is a disagreement between the staff recommendation and the applicant request. Staff's recommending 10 years with eligibility for auto renewal for additional 10-year periods. The applicant is requesting a permanent time period.
There's a box item in terms of the time.
And what was the reasoning for not the permanent?
What was the reason for what?
They're not the permanent. They've been there for at least 20 years.
I'm sorry, was the question, why is the case before you guys?
What was the reason for not the permanent?
Well, this is a SUP that's been in existence since like 2002 and 2003. And I think they were on an auto renewal process, but they missed their window to be eligible for automatic renewal this time, so they had to file just a regular renewal of the SUP, which is why it's coming before you guys, rather than being administratively approved.
No, I understand that. What was the reasoning for not the agreement for a permanent?
Oh, for disagreeing with the applicant, I will kick that question back over to Mr. Kerr.
Yes, we decided to continue with the 10-year periods as it was the original SUP, and those were the original conditions of the SUP. We decided that it would be more prudent to continue to follow that that original guideline.
Okay.
Any other questions on this item, commissioners? Okay, thank you, Mr. Kerr. We'll go to case 25. We need to do the approval of the annual report so we can get it turned in, so we does need a motion. Yeah. Yes, this is the last one.
This is item number 25, case Z234-103. This is an application for the renewal of specific use permit number 2367 for an alcoholic beverage establishment use limited to a microbrewery, microdistillery, or winery on property zone North Tract within Plan Development District number 316, the Jefferson Area Special Purpose District with Greater North Oak Cliff Demolition Delay Overlay District on the south side of Sunset Avenue between South Bishop Avenue and South Madison Avenue. The renewal of the SUP is for continued operation of the alcoholic beverage establishment use and approximately 6,874 square feet in size. Here's our location map. This is our zoom-in aerial map. Here is our zoning map. Surrounding uses to the north is PD 316, mixed use and commercial uses. To the east, also PD 316, commercial retail uses. To the south and to the west, similar uses. Quick background, again, is currently zone plan development number 316 with Greater North Oak Cliff Demolition Delay Overlay District. This lot has frontage on Sunset Avenue. Hours of operation are between 11 a.m. and 12 a.m. midnight, Monday through Sunday. This applicant proposes no other changes to the land use or site plan, and their current SUP expires or it did expire 1/26, but they filed for renewal last year, October 4th, for another 2-year term. Here we are on property, Sunset Avenue, looking south towards the property. This is adjacent to the site, looking north. This is same location looking west, same location looking east. This is on the east side of the property, looking south. Again, looking south. Here we're on property looking east down their alleyway. We're looking towards the property from the alleyway, so north. Here are the proposed SUP conditions. Here is the existing site plan. Here is the proposed site plan. And staff recommendation is approval for a 2-year period, subject to amended site plan and staff's recommended amended conditions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Commissioner Turner?
What was the reason for only doing 2 years as opposed to applicant's request for 5?
It's a good question, thank you. So the applicant requested 5, and we are recommending 2, just to give them basically a clean slate. So not to extend to the 5-year period. Yeah.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you, Mr. Clinton.
Thank you.
Commissioners, before we begin with the cases, we do need to go ahead and get our annual report voted on. Can I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, for the annual report, I move that we approve it with the option 2 mission statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Rubin, for your motion, and Commissioner Housewright for your second. Any discussion? All those in favor? It was per the edits?
Yes.
Yes, per the edits that were read into the record by Commissioner Hott.
Yes.
Thank you so much. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we'll now move into our cases. We'll begin with the miscellaneous item in case number 4, M234006.